Chapter 209. Father, you and Tang Guozhu know each other? Why didn't you tell me earlier? Jiang Yangming trembled with excitement when he heard the news. That's not right. Tang Guozhu was seriously ill at the beginning of 2007. He was sent to me for treatment, but the disease was too difficult to treat. I couldn't cure him. Grandpa Tang was also confused. Even if you couldn't cure him, you should have some affection for him. He must be here for Grandpa Tang. I will go and welcome him. Jiang Shoren was very excited. He led the way and went out to welcome the guests. An 80% new black Audi stopped in front of them. The car door opened, and Tang Linglong supported Tang Guozhu. Surrounded by the three sons of the Tang family, the whole family walked in. Tang Linglong was wearing a short trench coat with a black winter skirt and a pair of primary-colored stockings. A delicate belt was tied around her waist, outlining her graceful figure. Wow, she must be Secretary Tang's daughter. She's so beautiful. The Tang family's genes are too good. Many of the young people present exclaimed in surprise, and their saliva almost flowed out. Jiang Ran stared at Tang Linglong without blinking. His heart was burning with passion as he muttered, "If I marry this girl, with the support of the Tang family, won't I be able to rise up the ranks in the military and reach the top in one step?" Jiang Qingfeng was also very excited. He glanced at him and thought, "Jiang Ran, although you are doing well, your family background is too poor. You don't deserve her. Maybe I have a glimmer of hope." Looking at Tang Linglong, who was born noble and had an extraordinary bearing, Jiang Bangxia and the other girls of the Jiang family felt that she was like a princess. Their eyes were filled with jealousy and a sense of inferiority. "Old Master Tang, Secretary Tang, I didn't expect you to come." Jiang Shoren shook hands with the Tang family members. He held Tang Weiman's hand tightly and didn't want to let go. He was much younger than Tang Weiman, but at this time, his face was full of flattery, bowing to curry favor, which made people feel a little amused. "Haha, you are welcome. Where is Mr. Jiang?" Old Master Tang said with a kind smile. "He is in the inner hall. Elder Tang and everyone else, please follow me." Jiang Shoren thought to himself that someone who could be addressed as Mr. by Elder Tang was undoubtedly his father. Thus he pointed at the front and led the way. Unexpectedly, as soon as everyone walked under the canopy, Tang Linglong ran to Jiang Tian, bowed respectfully and shouted, "Master, I'm here. These are my parents. Haven't you always wanted to meet them?" Jiang Tian pointed at his parents. Junior Tang Linglong greets the two elders. "Happy New Year to you." Tang Linglong's eyes lit up. She immediately knelt down on the ground and performed the ritual of 3 kowtows and 9 kowtows. The ritual was strict and there was no mistake. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked to the point of being dumbstruck. They didn't dare believe it. This girl. Hurry up and get up. Jiang Zhixing and his wife were also baffled. Jiang Shoren was stunned at first. Then he smiled and hurried over to help her up. "Miss Tang, you are of noble status. How can you be so respectful to my third brother's family? The Tang family is right next to us, yet she's bowing to her useless third brother's family. If the Tang family gets angry, won't they overturn our Jiang family?" "Master Kong, so you are here. You are not in the inner hall. Greetings, Master Kong and Mrs. Jiang. The Tang family wishes Master Kang's parents a happy new year. Good luck in the new year." Unexpectedly, old Master Tang led his 3 sons over. He didn't stop Tang Linglong. Instead, he bowed respectfully to the Jiang family. His expression was extremely humble. That scene was like a bolt of lightning that struck everyone's heads. Everyone felt an electric shock spreading from their backs to their heads. A wave of numbness and dizziness spread from their heads to their limbs like ripples. What's going on? Everyone's eyes were filled with shock. They couldn't believe it. Jiang Shoren and the others were even more confused. Jiang Ran's face was sallow and his eyes were filled with fear. He couldn't believe that the Tang family was so respectful to Jiang Tian. He had offended Jiang Tian. With him in the way, how could he get close to the Tang family? Well, old Master Tang, the heroes of Jiangbei are all here. Yi Gufeng, Dragon Fifth, and the other heroes of Jiangbei came over to greet them. They were not surprised by old Master Tang's arrival at all. Jiang Tian was now a grandmaster who had defeated Wuxia. Who wouldn't submit to him if he claimed to be the most powerful person under the immortal state? Especially the Tang clan, they had obtained great benefits from Jiang Tian. Some of them were promoted, some of them became rich, and some of them became martial arts experts. It was old Master Jiang's birthday today. It would be strange if the Tang family didn't come to congratulate him. It's a mistake. We have been mistaken from the beginning to the end. Jiang Chao slapped his forehead and came back to his senses. His eyes were filled with fear as he said in a trembling voice, "They aren't here for Yi Gufeng's sake but for Jiang Tian." But what the hell is going on? Why do they respect Jiang Tian so much? Jiang Bangxia was not convinced. Jiang Tian, you know so many big shots. You do have the right to be arrogant. But so what? Jiang Qingfeng's clenched fists trembled slightly. His face was gloomy and he roared angrily in his heart. You're ignorant and incompetent. You're a good-for-nothing. Your father is just a lowly official. This is the Jiang family. They value talent and knowledge. I am the best descendant of the Jiang family. I am the only one who is qualified to control the Jiang family and the Medicine King group in the future. In the crowd, Jiang Zhixing and his wife were also very excited and confused. Zhang Wanqing murmured, "So in fact old Yi didn't come for us but for our son?" Jiang Zhixing couldn't believe it. He frowned and said angrily, "Wanqing, he didn't use your Zhang family's name in Linzhou, did he?" Strange things happened when the guests came today. Many big shots came to congratulate Jiang Tian on his birthday. It was unbelievable. Jiang Zhixing thought of all kinds of possibilities, but in the end, he rejected them one by one in his heart. In the end, he felt that this was the only truth. The Zhang family was one of the top 10 families in Yanjing. In recent years, they had been very influential. If Jiang Tian told the truth that he was the grandson of the Zhang family, even the Tang family would have to give him some face, let alone Dragon Fifth and other Jianghu tyrants. When he thought of this, his anger could not be quelled, and he was unhappy for a while. The Zhang family had always looked down on them. Jiang Zhixing was a businessman and had a proud character. He never tried to curry favor with them. Even when Xixia Pharmaceutical Factory was suppressed by the Sun family and almost closed down, he never lowered his head to ask the Zhang family for help. If his son did such a shameless thing, he would lose all his face. At this moment he wanted to kick Jiang Tian to the ground. What kind of future does your son have? Other than using the Zhang family to intimidate others, what else can he do? Second aunt also thought of this point, and immediately began to mock and ridicule. She said sourly, "He's just a good-for-nothing who studied in 3 lousy schools. He's just a good-for-nothing who only knows how to eat, drink and play. Can he really make these people respect him?" Yes, that must be it. In order to put makeup on their faces, Jiang Tian didn't even care about his face. He used the Zhang family to deceive these people from Jiangbei. The people from Jiangbei are really idiots. They don't know that the Zhang family and Jiang Tian's families are like fire and water. They haven't been together for many years. Hearing the second aunt's words, all the people present suddenly understood. Their shock turned to disdain. Jiang Qingfeng thought of this at this time. He immediately smiled coldly and murmured, "This kind of false prosperity is like a sand castle. It can't withstand any wind and water. Sooner or later, it will show its true form." His eyes were gloomy, and his heart was full of gloating mockery. Even the better they praised Jiang Tian now, the worse Jiang Tian will fall when they know the truth. Look, he is still complacent and talking happily. Jiang Bangxia thought so. Her clear and beautiful eyes were full of ridicule. She looked at Jiang Tian as if she was looking at a dead man and sneered. Such a powerful person respects you to get benefits from the Zhang family. When the time comes, you can't fulfill your promise. They will skin you alive. Yes, damn it. I just wanted to apologize to him. Fortunately, my mother reminded me in time. Otherwise, I would have lost my face. Jiang Chao wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and said, "Madam, don't talk nonsense." Zhou Zhenghao heard the second aunt's words. He suddenly turned around and shouted, "If it weren't for the old man's birthday, I would have killed you for what you said." He was born in the wilderness and looked fierce. The second aunt was so scared that she trembled and broke out in a cold sweat. Her face was extremely embarrassed. Zhou Jinghao looked around at the crowd with a murderous look and said coldly, Master Kong is dominating Lingnan. How can you say anything? At this time a young man ran over and shouted, oh no, Yu Chang is here. I saw him driving over at the entrance of the village. He is here to make trouble for Jiang Tian. What? He is here? Jiang Zhixing was shocked. Yu Chang had lost to Jiang Tian's sports car. Would he come to make trouble now? Zhang Wanqing put her hand on her forehead and said, this Yu Chang is so vicious. He picked such an important day to come here. Isn't he slapping us in the face? Haha, now he is exposed. He may have fooled everyone in Jiangbei, but he can't fool the people in Jinling. Jiang Bangxia clapped her small, jade-white hands and cheered. Jiang Qingfeng was too lazy to say anything. He just shook his head in disdain. Just wait and see. Yu Chang will thank the heavens if he doesn't kill him, Jiang Chao said with a strange smile. However, before his smile could fully bloom, it froze on his face and he could not smile anymore. Master Tang, this is the place. Yu Chang, who had a lot of power in Jinling, was nodding and bowing as he led the way for a few young men. It was as if they were nobler than him. One of them was dressed in a Buddhist style. His hair was shaved, leaving only a layer of short blue hair. He wore a buttoned robe and soft cloth shoes. He was twirling sandalwood Buddhist prayer beads in his hand. One of them was dressed in luxurious and fashionable clothes. He had a dignified appearance and looked very handsome. The other one was dressed like a military fanatic and had a bit of a ruthless aura. The last one was a murderous-looking man. He was tall and wore a camouflage uniform. He was followed by a beautiful and fashionable young woman, Tang Xiaozi, the young master of Yangcheng. Jiang Chao was shocked. He almost fell to the ground. By Choufei and Tai Ming Huang. Jiang Qingfeng's face was pale. His eyes were filled with fear and his voice was hoarse. He had already realized the seriousness of the stone gambling incident. Yu Chang had asked the forces of Yangcheng to suppress the Jiang family. If they joined hands, then it wouldn't just be a matter of Jiang Tian being punished and finished, but the entire Jiang family would be finished. Chapter 210. These three young masters could do whatever they wanted in Yangcheng. The combined assets of these three families amounted to nearly 20 million yuan. They were huge. In the past 6 months, they had begun to invade Su province and the Jinlin city market. Jiang Bangxia let out a sorrowful cry. Gu Siyu is my boss, the CEO of the Provincial Capital Investment Company. This time, Jiang Tian has really killed me. I'll definitely be fired by President Gu. What? Instructor Guo Yinlin? Why is he here? Jiang Rant's eyes were filled with admiration. Guo Yinlin's father was the second in command of the Jinlin City military region. Guo Yinlin was also the chief instructor of their team. He used to be like a fan meeting his idol when he saw Guo Yinlin. Young Master Chang, today is my grandpa's birthday banquet. Please show some mercy. Jiang Qingfeng showed the responsibility that the eldest son of the family should have. He braced himself and walked forward, looking pitiful. I know my useless cousin has offended you. Don't worry, I will break his legs and apologize to you. Jiang Bangxia pointed at Jiang Tian and shouted, Jiang Tian, you are the one who caused this trouble. Apologize to young Master Chang. What did you say? Whose legs did you say you want to break? Tang Xiaozi's eyes suddenly flashed with a cold light. His face darkened as he walked forward and pointed at Jiang Qingfeng's nose. Tang. Young Master Tang. I was talking about Jiang Tian, not you. Jiang Qingfeng was so scared that his face turned pale. He waved his hands in panic and staggered back. Slap. Tang Xiaozi raised his hand and slapped Jiang Qingfeng. The latter fell to the ground and blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. Hiss! How dare he hit someone at the Jiang family's birthday banquet? This is outrageous. Seeing this, everyone in the Jiang family gasped. Their faces changed dramatically, and their eyes were filled with hatred. However, no one dared to confront Tang Xiaozi. Tang Xiaozi was too powerful. He could wipe out the Jiang family with a wave of his hand. No one dared to offend him. Even Jiang Shoren and eldest aunt only helped Jiang Qingfeng up with pity in their eyes. They didn't even dare to criticize him. Xiaozi, don't you believe in Buddhism and don't like fighting and killing? Seeing this, Bai Chofei said with a dark expression. First, I believe in Master Kong. Second, I believe in Buddhism. In order to protect Master Kong, I am willing to commit murder and arson. Tang Xiaozi held a string of Buddha beads in his hands and put his palms together. His face was full of compassion as he said in a devout voice, "Believe in Master Kong and you will have eternal life." "Young Master Tang, please help me." Yu Chong tugged at Tang Xiaozi's sleeve and pleaded. "Master Kong, us good-for-nothings are here to wish you a happy new year, Master Kong, and to celebrate the old man's birthday." Under the incredulous gazes of the crowd, Tang Xiaozi, Tai Minghuang, and Bai Chofei all knelt on the ground and kowtowed 9 times. Yu Chong knelt behind Jiang Tian and slapped his own mouth. He said in a trembling voice, "Master Kong, I have offended you a few days ago. Please forgive me this time. I know I was wrong." Junior Guo Yinlin and Gu Xiu greet Master Kong. Guo Yinlin and Gu Xiu also walked forward and bowed respectfully to Jiang Tian. They wanted to make friends with Jiang Tian. What is going on? They are actually kneeling to Jiang Tian. The muscles at the corner of Jiang Yangming's eyes twitched crazily. His eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. My heart. Jiang Shoren's right hand trembled as he reached into his trouser pocket. He took out a quick-acting heart pill and swallowed it. The scene in front of him was too shocking. His heart couldn't take it. My God. This is too shocking. President Gu is actually... Jiang Bangxia was dumbfounded. Her mouth was wide open, and even her molars were exposed. Brother Qingfeng, give me an explanation. Can this be done by using the name of the Zhang family? Jiang Chao's mood was like a roller coaster, going up and down. He was about to go crazy because of Jiang Tian. Jiang Qingfeng felt as if he had been hit by a stick. He was dizzy and couldn't say a word at all. Could it be that Jiang Tian really made a lot of money? Did he invest in high-tech companies like Facebook and Goose Factory? Or take advantage of the financial crisis to short U.S. real estate bonds and make billions a year? But billions can't do that. Eldest aunt, second aunt, and third aunt were all speechless. Their faces were full of disbelief. Just as Jiang Chao said, Jiang Tian couldn't explain the shocking scene in front of them even if he borrowed the power of the Zhang family. That's right. These 3 young masters were arrogant and unruly. Even if they met the Zhang family, they wouldn't bow to them. But why did they kneel and worship Jiang Tian? Jiang Zhixing and Zhang Wanqing were also confused and shocked. Soon, that astonishment turned into utter astonishment. A super big shot that they didn't even dare to think about had also arrived. At this time, at the entrance of Jiang Manor, a few teenagers and children were picking up the firecrackers that had not been completely set off. Every time a distinguished guest came to celebrate the birthday, the Jiang family would set off a string of firecrackers to show their respect. Today, they had set off dozens of firecrackers. The air was filled with the strong smell of gunpowder, and the ground was full of red firecrackers and debris. It was almost noon, and the birthday banquet was about to start. Thinking that there wouldn't be any guests, the Jiang family had already returned to the village and sat down at the banquet. Let's play some fireworks. It's time to go back and eat. Yet Great-Grandpa Chongqing even knows how to give out red packets. The children had a lot of fun that day, and they were ready to play a few fierce games. The so-called firecrackers with firecrackers was to remove the firecrackers, pour out the gunpowder inside, connect it into a straight line, and set off a big firecracker at the end. The effect was quite explosive. First there was a flash of fire, and then there was a loud bang. At this time, a military off-road vehicle sped over and braked, blowing away the gunpowder ashes on the ground. Fuck. Don't you have eyes? A 13 or 14-year-old child jumped 3 feet high and pointed at an old man in military uniform who was walking out of the car. The children didn't care at all. They had seen too many luxury cars in the morning, such as Audi, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and even supercars. There was nothing strange about the car in front of them. Little brat, you have no manners. I'll beat you. Next to the old man, a heroic female military officer was about to hit him. Sorry. My driver didn't see clearly. This bag of candies is for you. The old man in military uniform patted his head and handed him a bag of milk candies with a kind smile. That's more like it. The child took it and rolled his eyes arrogantly. Child, is this Jiang Zhuang? Does Jiang Changing and old Master Jiang live here? The old man bent down with his hands behind his back and asked with a smile. Yes. The first house on the east side of the village. You're also here to celebrate the birthday, right? The child king saw that he was polite and had a good impression of him. His young face was especially cute. Okay, then I'll go. Don't play with the firecrackers. It's very dangerous. The old man in military uniform ordered the driver to stop the car at the entrance of the village. He walked toward the village with a smile on his face with a few followers. This car looks a bit like a Hummer. A child pointed at the car and said in a childish voice. Idiot, you can't read, right? This is the Dongfeng Warrior, a domestic car. The leader of the children opened the packaging and peeled off the candy. He rolled his eyes and slowly walked to the windshield. He looked at the pass and said, Central, Military, Committee Crash. His hands suddenly trembled, and the bag of candies fell to the ground in a mess. This person looks a bit familiar. Yeah, I think I've seen him on TV. When the old man walked toward the Jiangzhuang mansion, a group of people at a 30-meter-long banquet on the main road in the middle of the village looked at him curiously. For bodyguards in full military attire were guarding him tightly with their bodies of flesh and blood like iron buckets. 2 soldiers, 1 male and 1 female, and several officials with extraordinary bearings followed behind him. The old man walked over slowly with a calm demeanor. Jiang Tian, what did you do? Why do so many people respect you so much? Under the colorful canopy, Jiang Bangxia's face was full of horror. She roared loudly in her heart, but she didn't go forward to ask. She graduated from a famous overseas school and worked on Wall Street. She had her own pride, and could be said to be the most outstanding child of this generation of the Jiangzhuang family. Even Jiang Lin paled in comparison to her. Therefore, she didn't plan to go back to the Jiangzhuang family. She thought that the platform of the Medicine King group was too small. However, looking at the guests that even her father had to greet with a smile on his face, worshipping Jiang Tian with great respect, she felt that she, who had an annual salary of 1,000,000 yuan, was like a beggar, not worth mentioning. The only thing that could support her now was the qualifications of a famous school. It must be because of the Zhang family of Yanjin. Otherwise, they wouldn't even pay attention to this piece of trash. Jiang Qingfeng gritted his teeth and murmured to himself. He clenched his fists tightly and was burning with jealousy. Without the Zhang family of Yanjin, how could this piece of trash compare with me? Brother Changing, is Jiang Tian doing well in Lingnan? Why do so many tycoons respect him? Second grandpa stood at the door and held Jiang Changing's hand. He asked with a joyful face. Humph, second brother, you are wrong to think that way. Ninth grandpa sat in the armchair and didn't move. He said with a calm face. These tycoons in Lingnan are too far away. They are of limited help to our Jiang family. In the future, we still have to rely on Shoren Qingfeng. He had experienced the Republic of China, the founding of the country, and the reform and opening up. He had experienced the vicissitudes of life and seen through the wind and clouds. Many big families had good connections when they were famous. However, once they were in decline, the monkeys would scatter when the tree fell. How to establish a family and how to call it a clan depended on the talent and ability of the family members. It also depended on one's own strength. Jiang Bangxia had sneaked into the inner hall. When he heard this, he clapped his hands and said, Ninth grandpa is right. A family is supported by talents. If one's own strength is not strong, it doesn't matter how many connections one has. The so-called connections, in the end, are just an exchange of interests. But Jiang Tian, he is penniless. What can he exchange with them? Jiang Changing looked suspiciously at Jiang Tian, who was talking and laughing with many tycoons and officials in the courtyard. He said slowly, Bangxia, call Jiang Tian in and ask him what is going on. Yes, grandpa. Jiang Bangxia replied, taking pleasure in his misfortune. The fact that you used the name of the Zhang family to swindle people is probably going to be exposed. See if grandpa doesn't scold you to death. Hearing grandpa's call, Jiang Tian left the guests behind and walked into the inner hall. Many of the core members of the Jiang family wanted to see Jiang Tian's true face. Whether it was a mule or a horse, they followed him in. Jiang Tian, are you using the name of your grandfather's Zhang family to swindle people outside? Second aunt was the first to ask sarcastically. Chapter 211. Who do you think you are? Why are you asking me? Why should I answer you? Jiang Tian lazily took a cup of tea from a servant's hand and sipped on it as he spoke without even lifting his eyelids. He had heard his second aunt's nonsense, so he was not polite to her at all. How dare you talk to your second aunt like that? How dare you? Jiang Yangming was furious. He slammed the table and scolded. You can't be so disrespectful to your elders. That's right. A junior is so arrogant and runs amok. How can our Jiang family establish itself? Many members of the Jiang family pointed at Jiang Tian and scolded him harshly. They seemed to be taking the opportunity to vent the depression, humiliation, and defeat that Jiang Tian had brought to them. What kind of elder is she? In my heart, I only have one second aunt. Her ashes are in the ancestral hall of the Jiang family. Jiang Tian said indifferently as he blew on the steam from the tea. His expression was calm and relaxed. In the crowd, Jiang Lin's body trembled. Her beautiful eyes were misty, but she pressed her lips together and bit her red lower lip with her white teeth. She tried to hold back her tears. You can't cry. You are standing side by side with Jiang Tian. You have to create endless glory with him. She gritted her teeth and warned herself. Jiang Yangming's first wife, Jiang Lin's birth mother, was kind and gentle. She loved Jiang Tian very much. She was also very capable. She had worked hard with her mother to build the Medicine King group. The current second aunt was actually Jiang Yangming's former secretary. She was his mistress. Back then, she went to the Jiang family and made a scene. She beat and scolded Jiang Lin's mother. Jiang Yangming protected the mistress and made his first wife hang herself out of anger. Listen to me. Is this what a junior should say? I have been serving Yangming for years. Have I been feeding dogs? Hearing this, the second aunt was so angry that she almost fainted. She beat her chest and stomped her feet, wailing and wailing. Jiang Tian, you are too much. Don't think you're so great just because you used the Zhang family's name to trick a few rich and powerful officials. If you do this again, I'll slap you. Everyone vented their suppressed anger on Jiang Tian, and a battle of words ensued. All of you shut up. Jiang Changding slammed his crutch on the ground as he swept his dignified gaze across the crowd. He angrily said, It's my birthday, yet all of you are crying and making a ruckus? Did I die? As soon as he said this, second aunt was so frightened that she immediately retracted the tears that she had forced out. Everyone remained silent, glaring hatefully at Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian, why are so many people here today? What's going on? Jiang Changding asked with a kind smile. Grandpa, I can only tell you that the respect they gave me had nothing to do with the Zhang family. I earned it with my own ability. Jiang Tian crossed his legs and said calmly, They sent some medicinal herbs over. These medicinal herbs can allow me to extend your lifespan for at least 20 years. I can guarantee that you will live to 100 years old. Hiss! How arrogant! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air in unison, looking at Jiang Tian in disbelief. Too arrogant. They gave you face. What right do you have? The whole place was filled with exclamations of surprise. Jiang Tian was angry that Jiang Tian insulted his mother. He slammed the table and scolded. Jiang Tian, tell me, what right do you have to earn this respect? If you really have the ability, I will kneel down and kowtow to you today. In the face of everyone's questions, Jiang Tian remained silent, as if he had nothing to say. It was as if he was really a fraud. Distinguished guests have arrived. At this moment, a loud voice came from the door to welcome the guests. He did not recognize these people. Whoosh! Everyone under the canopy turned their heads in unison. At this moment, the three young masters of Yangcheng, Guilin, Yuchang, and the others had already presented their gifts to Jiang Tian, and were sitting under the canopy. Instructor Gua, I'm little Jiang. Jiang Ran pulled a chair and sat behind Guilin, waiting for an opportunity to get close to him. Thump! When Jiang Ran turned his head and saw the old man, his body went limp and he slid down from the chair. The second most important person in the Jinling military, Gu Gangchuan. The second most important person in the military commission of Wuxia, Chao Shixiang. The villagers did not recognize them, but how could Jiang Ran not recognize the famous Chao Shixiang? The members of the Jiang family in the inner hall were all confused at this time. They whispered to each other and discussed animatedly. What guest? Yeah, the birthday banquet has already started, and the dishes have already been served. Why would there be a guest at this time? At this moment, Jiang Ran stumbled in and said in a trembling voice, Master Chongqing, it's Chao Shixiang from the military commission. Whoosh! The sound of chairs being moved could be heard. Many Jiang family members stood up and exclaimed. Who's here? Chao Shixiang? What? Chao Shixiang is here. Even Granduncle Jiu couldn't help but stand up. His turbid eyes suddenly became extremely clear and emitted rays of light. Great-grandson Jiang Ran, is this true? Ninth great-uncle, it's absolutely true. Let's go and welcome him. Jiang Ran nodded hurriedly and urged anxiously. Quick. Chongqing, help me to meet the old chief. Ninth great-uncle hurriedly walked out with his walking stick. What did I hear wrong? It's really Chao Shixiang? Jiang Shouren, Jiang Yangming, and the others' minds went blank. Some were dizzy, and some were trembling nonstop. They all rushed out. Why is he here? Did Grandpa treat him? He will be the head of the family. He will kill me. What should I do? Jiang Chao was so scared that his face turned pale and his body trembled. He really didn't know how Jiang Tian would punish him. He was not as low-key as Jiang Tian, who liked to jump up and down. He had argued with Jiang Tian several times, so he was most scared at this time. In fact, every member of the Jiang family who was present at the scene was also horrified and trembling in fear. The family bullied a junior. If they strangled him on the spot when he was weak, they would never have any future troubles. However, this guy's strength was tyrannical. He had a strong background and connections. If he wanted to take revenge, who could stop him? Perhaps he could decide everyone's life and death with just one word. Second Grandpa, who always doted on Jiang Tian, shook his head when he saw everyone's grief-stricken faces. He sighed in his heart. It's really better to bully an old man than a poor young man. As the saying goes, life is full of ups and downs. It only took him 30 minutes to slap his face back. In fact, only a few seconds had passed, but to everyone, it felt like a long century. Elder Chao, it's just a small matter. You don't have to be so concerned. Jiang Tian slowly put down his teacup. He didn't look at Chao Jianjia, but turned to Chao Shixiang and said indifferently, Thank you, Master Kong. Chao Jianjia, who had been bowing and didn't dare to get up, finally let out a long breath and slowly straightened her body. She knew that with Jiang Tian's domineering and arrogant personality, if he was determined to deal with her, he would never put on a pretense. When he said that, it meant that the Martial Arts Alliance conference could be closed, and everything could start anew. Chao Shixiang also understood this point. Some things were, of course, inconvenient to say in front of everyone. He drank a cup of tea and chatted with everyone in an amiable manner. He declined the invitation to the birthday banquet, and left with everyone. When he sent Chao Shixiang to the entrance of the village, he watched him leave. Ninth Grandpa leaned on his walking stick, and looked up to the sky with tears in his eyes. He sighed and said, Our Jiang family has a dragon. We're going to have a meteoric rise. Chapter 212. Until now, everyone in the Jiang family was still immersed in shock, unable to recover for a long time. Jiang Tian, what's wrong with you? Zhang Wanqing couldn't help but ask her son. Jiang Zhixing also looked at Jiang Tian with a frown. Now he felt that this son of his was so unfamiliar. I'll tell you in detail later. Jiang Tian raised his eyebrows, glanced at his father, and said calmly. Jiang Zhixing finally understood why Jiang Tian didn't prepare a birthday gift, and instead meditated every day. He had far surpassed that level. It could even be said that he was the best gift given to the Jiang family by the heavens. At this moment, Jiang Tian looked over. Jiang Zhixing suddenly remembered that on the second morning of the banquet, he couldn't help but want to teach this child a lesson. At that time, he was meditating cross-legged and only raised his eyebrows to look at him. He still remembered that look deeply. He had originally planned to teach him a lesson after the banquet. But now he suddenly understood what kind of look it was. He had once been to the golden peak of Mountamay and watched the sunrise in the morning. The chicken-like yellow egg broke through the horizon and opened up thousands of multicolored rays of light, just like that pair of eyes at that time, vast and boundless. There was also a kind of helpless indifference that couldn't be described with words. But at this moment, Jiang Zhixing didn't feel any shame or anger at all. Instead, there was an indescribable sense of pride. When they returned to the courtyard, the banquet began. Jiang Tian and Zhao Xueqing were directly pulled to the first table to sit with the old man and ninth great-uncle. This table was full of grandfathers, not even an uncle. Even Jiang Shoren was only at the second table. Halfway through the wine, Jiang Changing smiled with a gratified expression. Jiang Tian, you said that you would extend my lifespan by 30 years. How do you want to extend it? He was actually a little curious. Jiang Tian had so many followers and supporters. Was it because of his medical skills? Qing'er, open it and let Grandpa have a look. Jiang Tian smiled faintly. Zhao Xueqing hurried forward and opened the lid of a box. Rhinoceros horn cup. Moreover, it was an antique cup. Look at this carving. It looks like it's from the Ming Dynasty. Crystal clear white jade condensed into a rhinoceros horn. Bright red clothes embroidered with tiger stripes. This rhinoceros horn cup is priceless. It's worth at least 10 million. The point is, this thing is priceless. Even if you have the money, you can forget about buying it. When the crowd saw what was inside the box, they exclaimed in disbelief. Many of them were rich people and knew a lot about antiques. They could tell at a glance that this rhinoceros horn cup was extraordinary. Rhinoceros horn was a precious medicinal ingredient for clearing heat and detoxifying. In ancient times, it was as famous as the luminous wall and the bright moon pearl. According to legend, the rhinoceros horn had the function of detoxifying and warding off evil spirits. Just like poison, the poison would foam. Therefore, it was valued by the emperor and made into cups and other utensils to inspect food. In ancient times, royal craftsmen carved wine cups according to the natural shape of rhinoceros horns for the emperor to enjoy. Today, rhinoceroses are endangered and protected animals. Rhinoceros horns can no longer be used as horn carving materials. Rhinoceros horn carving, as a wonderful piece of ancient art in Wuxia, has become extinct. This seems to be a gift from Dragon Fifth. It's so valuable. Jiang Bangxia's face suddenly collapsed. She couldn't laugh anymore. She looked at Jiang Tian in disbelief. The value of the little golden man she gave to her grandpa was not even 1/5 of the rhinoceros horn cup. It was ridiculous that she had just mocked Jiang Tian's gift. Now she felt that her face was swollen. Grandpa, please take a look. Zhao Xueqing smiled indifferently and opened the second box. Ivory guanine statue. Go back and hit the heavy sea. Barefoot Persia enters the ivory. This ivory guanine statue is made of first-class materials and has a smooth shape. It's definitely more valuable than the rhinoceros horn cup. Everyone exclaimed again. Their faces were full of shock, and their eyes were wide open. This ivory guanine statue was 10 centimeters high. It was white and tender like a spring bamboo, crystal clear. The guanine was compassionate, and the lines were smooth. It seemed to be exuding a holy brilliance. Grandpa, look again. Zhao Xueqing smiled sweetly and then opened the third box. Red coral. 1,000 years of cultivation into a beautiful tree. The world only knows the red coral. This coral is really beautiful. It's red all over and has a beautiful shape. But this one is worth at least 50 million. The rich people present were shocked to the extreme again. Their eyes were wide open. They couldn't believe it, and their eyes were shining. The coral was shaped like a tree. It grew an inch every 20 years and a kilogram every 300 years. It was solid and red in color. This coral tree was 20 centimeters high. It was at least 1,000 years old. In Wuxia, coral was a symbol of auspiciousness and wealth. It had been used to make precious handicrafts. Red coral was an ornament of the palace for generations. Coral trees, bonsai, concubines' crowns, and the crowns of the princes and ministers were all made of red coral. Such a big red coral could be said to be priceless and difficult to buy. Zhao Xueqing opened the fourth box. This is tortoiseshell. How to not love sickness, double pearl tortoiseshell hairpin. This jade hairpin made of tortoiseshell is also an antique. It seems to be a treasure of the Tang dynasty. A tortoiseshell hairpin is worth tens of millions. But here, there are 10 of them at once. Everyone's eyes were blinded again. They were already numb from the shock. The tortoiseshell hairpin was made from the scales on its back. It was an organic material. The shell of an adult tortoiseshell was a vibrant yellowish-brown color. The patterns on the tortoiseshell scales were crystal clear and elegant. It was the best ornament and collector's item. Tortoiseshell was highly toxic and could not be eaten. However, it could be used as a medicine to clear away heat and detoxify the body. It was an expensive Chinese medicine, and had the miraculous effect of clearing away heat, detoxifying poison, calming shock, and lowering blood pressure. I'm going to faint. This should add up to a few $100 million, right? I only spent $5 million to buy that medical book that I gave him. Why does it seem so ridiculous? At this moment, Jiang Qingfeng was also dumbfounded. His face turned red as if he had been slapped countless times by an invisible force. At this time, he felt that he was like a clown, so ridiculous. He was so embarrassed that his face flushed red, and he wished he could find a hole to hide in. Grandpa, take another look. Zhao Xueqing opened the last box. He Dinghong. To be exact, this is a rui made by He Dinghong. Spirit Seed Flying Crane Red, who has 9 transformations immortal art. This He Dinghong is priceless. Its value is immeasurable. Everyone was shocked to the point tempestuous waves arose in their hearts, and they were filled with disbelief. Their hearts were simply on the verge of jumping out of their throats. Jiang Tian's gift was like an antique exhibition. Every single one of them was a top-notch treasure. Any one of them would be able to shock anyone. Not to mention that Jiang Tian had taken out so many at once. Most importantly, these treasures were given to Jiang Tian by the people of Lingnan. It showed Jiang Tian's immense power and influence in Lingnan. It's worth at least 500 million in total. Jiang Chao was so excited that the muscles at the corner of his eyes twitched. He had no intention of competing. Instead, his heart was burning with passion. If Grandpa leaves all these to me, I'll be rich. Grandpa, that's all. Zhao Xueqing smiled faintly and retreated behind Jiang Tian obediently. The whole place was silent. Even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. Everyone looked at the treasures with greed, fanaticism, and shock. Their bodies were trembling, and they did not say a word. Jiang Tian was still sipping his tea with an indifferent expression. It was as if what he gave to Grandpa was not a treasure worth a few $100 million, but a pile of radishes and cabbages. Jiang Tian, you're wrong. Jiang Tian resisted stubbornly. He snorted and looked at Jiang Tian with a mocking expression. Grandpa is not a greedy person. Although these antiques are valuable, Grandpa will not like them. Yes, Grandpa has always lived a simple life. He also asks us to be thrifty. It may not be a good thing for you to buy such expensive things. Jiang Bangxia smiled and comforted herself. Jiang Tian, these gifts are from your friends. But they are so expensive. How are you going to return such a huge favor? Jiang Shoren was also educating him earnestly. His tone had softened a little. First uncle's family still dared to speak. However, second uncle Jiang Yangming, eldest aunt and youngest aunt's families all shut their mouths. Jiang Tian's strength was too strong, and they couldn't afford to offend him. Facing the doubts of the 3 people, Jiang Tian was unmoved. He smiled faintly and said, "These are not antiques. They are medicine." With that, Jiang Tian slowly picked up the ivory guanyin statue that was worth at least tens of millions. Bang! Then, under the shocked gaze of everyone, he slammed the ivory guanyin statue on the table. The ivory guanyin statue was shattered into white powder by Jiang Tian's true core strength. Is he crazy? He smashed it. Everyone was stunned and couldn't believe it. They were 10 times more shocked than when they first saw these treasures. Jiang Tian, what do you mean? Jiang Shoren looked at Jiang Tian in shock and anger. Was Jiang Tian trying to show off to him? Bang! Jiang Tian smashed the rhinoceros horn cup into pieces. Bang! Jiang Tian knocked the cup gently and the red coral cracked inch by inch. In the end, under the shocked gazes of everyone, Jiang Tian smashed all these treasures into pieces as if they were a pile of trash. 500 million. Vanished into thin air. Jiang Tian, I won't stop you if you want to give Grandpa a gift. Why did you smash it? Are you trying to show off to me? Jiang Shoren was so angry that the veins on his forehead bulged. Jiang Shoren. Jiang Tian called him by his name and smiled faintly. You think too highly of yourself. Why should I show off to you? You are not even in my eyes. Then what do you mean? You are very powerful, but you can't disobey the rules of the family, right? Jiang Qingfeng was trembling with anger. Many members of the Jiang family were furious. Shut up. Ninth great-uncle shouted in a low voice. Jiang Tian naturally has his reasons for doing so. Ninth uncle, you are the most sensible one. Jiang Tian smiled. I am giving Grandpa a big gift, but this gift is Grandpa's health. What gift? Ninth uncle was confused. Everyone was also suspicious. However, Jiang Chongqing had already understood something. His heart trembled and his face was full of disbelief. Can he make that kind of medicine? How is that possible? Chapter 213. Jiang Tian said with a smile. Grandpa has already shown signs of the 5 decays of heaven and man. Moreover, he has been smoking and staying up late for a long time. He has even been infected with a variety of viruses at work, which have gone deep into his bone marrow. Ordinary drugs can't be removed and detoxified. We must first use red crane to fight poison with poison, and disintegrate the toxins before the remaining efficacy of the medicine can be exerted. As he spoke, he grabbed a handful of the red crane's crown shards, and placed them into a jade bottle with the exact amount. After the toxins are removed, use the cooling and detoxifying effect of the rhinoceros horn and tortoiseshell shell to neutralize the first 2 toxins. Jiang Tian smiled faintly and picked up an appropriate amount of rhinoceros horn and tortoiseshell shell, putting them into the jade bottle. But detoxifying doesn't mean curing. At this time, Grandpa's organs have been seriously damaged and are almost failing. He still needs to be carefully nursed. A doctor has his own intentions. The famous doctor of the Qing dynasty, Yi Tianshi, used a handful of parasol leaves to treat pregnant women with dystocia. He used the parasol leaves to contain the meaning of autumn to descend and all things to wither. The red coral is red and curved like meridians. It can be used to nourish the meridians. The ivory shape is plump and full, soft and moist to the touch. When used in medicine, it can restore the vitality of Grandpa's body and organs. As he spoke, Jiang Tian accurately picked up a certain amount of red coral and ivory fragments and put them into the jade bottle. Jiang Tian, your medical skills are really amazing. Where did you learn it? Jiang Chongqing sighed, and was so excited that tears flowed down his face. In addition, Jiang Tian took out the dragon bone wisteria, snow jian, red xian, phoenix helianthus, and other herbs that he had plundered from Shenong school. He took out an appropriate amount of each and threw them into the jade bottle. With the nourishment of these herbs, I can refine 39 transformation great recovery pills. It can completely solve the problem of the 5 decays of heaven and man, and extend Grandpa's life by at least 20 years. Good Jiang Tian, good grandson, I didn't misjudge you. Jiang Chongqing chuckled and felt very comforted. Spending 500 million to plunder medicinal pills just to treat his illness. This filial piety alone was not something that Jiang Shoren, Jiang Yangming, Jiang Qingfeng, and Jiang Bengxia could compare with. Which one of them didn't wish for him to die early, so that they could become the head of the family and enjoy glory and wealth? This child is not bad. Ninth great-uncle's face was full of praise as he nodded repeatedly. However, the process of me refining medicinal pills cannot be seen by ordinary people, Jiang Tian said with a faint smile. Hearing Jiang Tian's eviction order, many of the guests did not dare to show the slightest bit of arrogance and displeasure as they bid farewell and left. Thus, Jiang Chongqing's 70th birthday banquet came to an end in such a way that everyone was talking about it. It was already 3 in the afternoon. The warm winter sun shrouded the courtyard. Cups and plates were in a mess, and wine bottles were scattered all over the floor. Jiang Chongding did not allow anyone to clean up. The faint fragrance of food and wine floated in the air. It was a typical scene after a banquet. Jiang Tian, you said you know how to refine pills? Jiang Chongding was in disbelief. This was an absolute art. It was already the pinnacle of medicine and pharmacy. He had only read some legends about it in ancient books. That's right. Under the nervous gazes of the crowd, Jiang Tian nodded slightly with a calm expression. Hiss! Jiang Chongding took in a breath of cold air, then frowned and asked, how are you going to refine it? Do you need a cauldron? No. I can refine it. Grandpa, take a look. Jiang Tian smiled faintly as he grabbed the herbs in his hand. With a flick of his fingers, a raging flame suddenly burned in Jiang Tian's hand. Could it be that my grandson is an immortal? Jiang Chongding stood up with a shocked expression on his face. He could not believe it. Seeing Jiang Tian control the flame and concoct the pill, everyone was dumbstruck. They were completely dumbfounded. They only felt that Jiang Tian was just like what Jiang Chongding said, an immortal and a god. No one dared to look directly into Jiang Tian's eyes, completely surrendering to him. As his cultivation improved, his true essence and divine sense became more powerful. Jiang Tian only took 15 minutes to refine the medicinal pill. After making the old man consume it, Jiang Tian sent him to his room to rest for a while. At the banquet, everyone gathered again according to the old man's instructions. However, everyone looked at Jiang Tian with a different gaze. It was as if they were looking at a god, with deep fear in their respect. After Jiang Chongding got up, he felt that his body was incomparably relaxed and full of energy. The 5 decays of heaven and man were greatly alleviated. He also believed that after consuming all the medicinal pills, he would definitely recover. When he came to the inner hall, everyone sighed at the miraculous effects of Jiang Tian's medicinal pills. Now I propose a proposal. Jiang Chongding's dignified gaze swept across everyone present. Everyone immediately had a bad premonition. Sure enough, Jiang Chongding said in a deep voice, Jiang Tian, take over my position as the Jiang family's patriarch. What? Everyone exclaimed. Jiang Shoren's face was ashen. He still wanted to become the Jiang family's patriarch after the old man passed away, but now, it was all for naught. I second it. Second Grandpa expressed his agreement. Agreed. Third Grandpa nodded. We can only be at ease if the Jiang family is handed over to Jiang Tian. He is worthy of great responsibility. Ninth Great Uncle looked at Jiang Tian with eyes full of admiration and admiration. Jiang Shoren looked at Jiang Yangming, hoping that his second brother would say something fair. Unexpectedly, Jiang Yangming nodded without even looking at him. Agreed. Since no one objects, then from now on, Jiang Tian will be the patriarch. He will be in charge of everything. Whoever dares to disobey his orders will be punished according to the family rules. Jiang Chongding's dignified gaze swept across everyone's faces as he spoke with a solemn expression. Jiang Tian sat there, his expression neither sad nor happy. He was at ease, as if everything was within his expectations. At this moment, he was no longer that worthless idiot. Instead, he was the Jiang family's helmsman, representing the Jiang family's future hope. His every move could affect the Jiang family's future and destiny. Next, the family meeting will be handed over to Jiang Tian. Jiang Chongding looked at everyone and said in a deep voice, Jiang Qingfeng kneel. This was Jiang Tian's first sentence as the patriarch. His voice was cold, merciless, and full of dignity. Why should I kneel? Jiang Qingfeng's face flushed red as he sneered. I'm your cousin. Even if you have the authority of the patriarch according to the family rules, I don't have to kneel to you. Jiang Shoren was filled with resentment. His face was ashen as he said in a sarcastic tone, Patriarch, you've grasped the authority of the patriarch well. I'm not asking you to kneel to me. I'm asking you to kneel to your grandfather and the ancestors of the Jiang family. Jiang Tian stared at Jiang Qingfeng and sneered. How much commission did you get when you purchased 2 billion worth of equipment from Pfizer Medical Equipment Company? How much of Shixia Pharmaceutical Company's profits did you withhold last year? You're slandering me. Jiang Qingfeng was flustered as he gritted his teeth and shouted angrily. Feng Yu's contract with Pfizer was a big secret. He had even changed the finance department, and everyone was loyal to him. How did Jiang Tian know about all these? Is he really greedy for money? There was an uproar in the room. Many people looked at Jiang Qingfeng suspiciously. Jiang Shoren cleared his throat and said in a deep voice, "Patriarch, you can't talk nonsense. If you believe that Qingfeng is greedy, then show me the evidence. Otherwise, my whole family won't be convinced." "All right, I'll make you convinced." Jiang Tian's face was calm. He crossed his legs and said indifferently, "You've set up 3 accounts in the company. One for the tax, one for the family, and the last one is the real one. Do you think you can hide it from me?" He sipped his tea and suddenly picked up a stack of documents and smashed it on Jiang Qingfeng's face. "Look at how much you've embezzled. The commission is 2 billion, and the profits are about 1 billion. At this time, Tang Xiaozi walked in and bowed to Jiang Tian. He then distributed the documents to everyone. He sneered and said, "This year, every time he released the financial report, he hired Diqing accounting firm to do an independent audit. For every audit, he spent millions to bribe the accountant. Unfortunately, the person behind the scenes of this accounting firm is me. Qingfeng, look at what you've done." Jiang Yangming was furious after reading a few pages. "Qingfeng, you've gone too far. I invited you back to revive the family, but you embezzled money." Big Aunt scolded. "This is so disappointing. How dare you embezzle everyone's money?" Little Uncle was also furious. This was human nature. If it didn't have anything to do with them, they would roll up their sleeves and get to the bottom of it. Jiang Qingfeng knelt on the floor and said in a trembling voice, "Grandpa, this is all my fault. Please give me a chance. I will turn over a new leaf." Jiang Changging's face showed deep disappointment. He didn't even look at him and said coldly, "It's useless to beg me. I've said that from now on, Jiang Tian will be in charge of the family. I propose to remove Jiang Qingfeng as the chairman of the Medicine King Group, and let Ms. Zhang Wanqing take over." Jiang Yangming suddenly stood up and said in a loud voice, "The situation was hopeless. Hurry up and show your loyalty." "I agree. I agree. Sister-in-law Wanqing is the founder of the Medicine King Group. She will be the chairman of the Medicine King Group." "We agree." The public opinion had been formed. Jiang Qingfeng had lost his support. Everyone wanted to kick a man when he was down. Jiang Qingfeng collapsed to the ground with tears streaming down his face. Jiang Bengxia was trembling. He looked at Jiang Tian in horror as if he was looking at a demon. Jiang Shoren and his wife sighed as if they were mourning their parents. "In that case, from now on, Ms. Zhang Wanqing will be the chairman of the Medicine King Group." Jiang Tian looked calm and relaxed. It could be said that he was decisive and efficient. "Well, I will not let you down. I will be diligent and restore the prestige of the Medicine King Group." Zhang Wanqing stood up with excitement. She took a deep breath and said in a powerful voice, "He did it. He really did it." Her eyes were slightly moist. She stared deeply at her son's handsome face and sighed in her heart. 3 months ago, her son once said that he would help her take back the chairman position of the Medicine King Group. At that time, she thought it was incredible. She only thought that her son was talking nonsense, and was just empty words to comfort her. But now, it only took him a few minutes to remove Jiang Qingfeng from the chairman position, and even defeat Jiang Shoren's faction. Great, great. This is really exhilarating. Jiang Zhixing clenched his fists and couldn't help but want to cheer and jump up a few times. Chapter 214. I suggest that Yi Ziwei be the president of the Medicine King Group. Jiang Lin will be the vice president of the Medicine King Group. She will assist Ms. Zhang Wanqing in the development of new products. Jiang Tian said calmly, "What? You want to promote Jiang Lin?" Jiang Yangming looked at Jiang Tian in disbelief. He was so touched that he almost burst into tears. Yi Ziwei was still fine, but Jiang Lin had been pushed to the bottom. Now, she had become a phoenix. Since Jiang Tian's return, their family had been disrespectful to Jiang Tian. They did not expect Jiang Tian to let bygones be bygones and promote Jiang Lin to such a position. Jiang Lin is conscientious and capable. Why shouldn't I promote her? Jiang Tian smiled faintly. Hearing this, Jiang Lin burst into tears. She stood up, trembling all over, and said fervently, Jiang Tian, don't worry, I'll do my best. I will fight for the Jiang family until the last drop of my blood. I believe in you. Jiang Tian smiled faintly. Patriarch Jiang, you are fair and broad-minded. We will support you. With you as the patriarch, the Jiang family will prosper. The hall was filled with praises. Everyone was in awe of Jiang Tian's broad-mindedness and magnanimity. Jiang Tian scanned the hall and said in a deep voice, one more thing. No one is allowed to breathe a word about what happened today, including grandfather's recovery. Otherwise, you will be punished according to the family rules. Yes. Many Jiang family members answered. Although they did not understand why Jiang Tian did not apply the powder on his face, they did not dare to ask. The current Jiang Tian had already walked too high. It was not something that they could understand or guess. Today was a day of great turmoil for the Jiang family and the Medicine King Group. Jiang Qingfeng's position in the Medicine King Group was removed. Then the Economic Investigation Bureau intervened and arrested him for embezzlement. What awaited him was severe punishment. He would probably be locked up for at least 3 to 5 years. Jiang Yangming very consciously submitted his resignation. He was no longer the vice president of the group and gave the position to a younger person. The entire Medicine King Group had also undergone a major overhaul. Many of the middle and high-level managers who had acted as parasites and accomplices were fired or even arrested. There were more than a dozen people involved in the case. As for Jiang Shoren, he didn't seem to be affected much, but in fact, the Jiang family had already decided to pour all their political resources into Jiang Zhixing. Jiang Shoren had only been a deputy inspector for a year, before he retired early with the excuse of being unwell. He had become a dispensable person in the Jiang family. Jiang Qingfeng and Pfizer had only signed a contract, but they had not completed the delivery of the goods. This illegal agreement was invalid immediately. From time to time, there would be a dull sound in the sky, and the air would be filled with the smell of gunpowder. It was the children setting off firecrackers. The spring festival is coming soon. Jiang Tian's eyes were filled with tenderness. Jiang Tian had decided to spend the spring festival in Jinling this year. Firstly, he hadn't been back for a long time. Secondly, he needed to be here to help his mother complete the transition smoothly and firmly control the Medicine King Group. A few days before and after the spring festival, Jiang Tian stayed in Jiang Manor to accompany his grandfather and family. He and Qing'er had a peaceful period of time. Jiang Tian, Qing'er, what do you think about the future development of Medicine King Group? On the day of the spring festival, Jiang Tian, Qing'er, and Jiang Zhixing were chatting and drinking tea with Grandpa Jiang. Grandpa Jiang asked with a smile. Medicine King Group needs to focus on the development of Chinese medicine. You have seen the sales of the muscle-nourishing ointment. Jiang Tian said lightly. Jiang Tian, what you said makes sense. Qingfeng has completely lost the foundation of the Jiang family by dabbling in Western medicine. Hearing this, Jiang Chongqing suddenly felt refreshed. He clapped his hands and praised. You are so good at alchemy. Your understanding and application of Chinese medicine must be perfect. When the time comes, you will be able to sweep away Wuxia. Sweep away Wuxia? Grandpa, your goal is too small. I want to sweep away the whole world. Jiang Tian sipped his tea and smiled calmly. In his previous life, when he stepped on the ancient path of the stars, he had seen many cultivation civilizations. In some cultivation civilizations, equipment forging and alchemy had developed to an unimaginable level. Some of them had set up arrays to gather spiritual energy and achieve large-scale cultivation of spirit herbs. The fields of herbs were endless, and the spirit herbs were piled up like mountains. Some of the equipment forging sects made extremely complicated and delicate alchemy furnaces. They had spiritual intelligence and could operate automatically to achieve automatic alchemy. Now that the spiritual qi on earth was exhausted, if Jiang Tian could build such a production line, the efficacy of Chinese medicine would increase tenfold or even hundredfold. It would be a piece of cake for him to sweep away Wuxia and perhaps the whole world. Of course, the equipment forging resources on Earth were relatively scarce. It was impossible for Jiang Tian to completely replicate the production line in the cultivation world. However, even if it was only 1/10 of the efficiency, it was still quite terrifying. Jiang Tian, did you say that you want to produce the prescriptions that you gave to Jiang Lin? Zhang Wanqing asked. Those prescriptions can be produced with the production line of the Medicine King Group. But I have a more far-reaching plan. Jiang Tian crossed his legs and said leisurely, but I also want to build a laboratory and a new production line in Jinling. If this is successful, we can mass-produce the pills that Grandpa took. Mass-produce pills? Jiang Zhixing and his wife were dumbfounded when they heard this. Even the old man was excited. They had seen the efficacy of the 9 Revolutions Great Recovery pill clearly. After a few days, the old man's illness had completely disappeared, and he had completely recovered. This was not a medicine, it was simply an elixir. If this kind of pill could be mass-produced, it would be earth-shattering. Jiang Tian, can the pills be mass-produced? If it can be realized, we can really sweep the whole world. Jiang Chongqing slapped his thigh and said with deep emotion, "It has been my lifelong dream to revitalize Chinese medicine and promote it to the whole world. I didn't expect that it would be realized by you." Then after the Lantern Festival, don't leave. Live in Jinling with Qing'er. As Zhang Wanqing spoke, her tears almost flowed out. This is your home. Grandpa, will you allow it? How can it not be allowed? After Jiang Tian's return, our Jiang family will be as powerful as a dragon. Let's show the family in Yanjing what Jiang Tian is capable of. With the strength of our Jiang family, they will regret it. Jiang Chongqing's eyes flashed with a bright light. Even after so many years, he had never let it go. Okay. Jiang Tian readily agreed. On the one hand, the spirit gathering array in the king's #1 villa was useless to Jiang Tian's cultivation. In addition, the hidden hostile forces in Jinling had not been completely eliminated. Jiang Tian wanted to find an opportunity to eliminate them. But Qing'er is the chairman of Zhao's pharmaceutical company. Can she leave? Zhang Wanqing asked. He hoped that his daughter-in-law would give birth to a grandson soon so that he could hold his grandson. He did not want her and Jiang Tian to be separated. Hubby, I don't want to be separated from you. What do you think? Qing'er asked softly. Qing'er, I think you should live in the king's #1 villa in Linzhou for the time being. Jiang Tian smiled. No, Zhao Xueqing refused. She pouted her cute little mouth and said with 70% grievance and 30% toughness, I want to be with you. I can give the Zhao's pharmaceutical company to Auntie Wei Fang and my sister. I can't be separated from you for even a day. Jiang Zhixing and Zhang Wanqing looked at each other when they saw Zhao Xueqing's true feelings. They were very gratified. Qing'er, the Zhao's pharmaceutical company is a small matter. We can transfer a group of management from the Medicine King Group. You don't have to worry about it at all. Jiang Tian explained earnestly. The key is that the spirit gathering array still contains abundant spiritual energy. It would be a pity if you abandon it now. You can still cultivate for another 6 months to a year. Oh, Qing'er replied. She lowered her head slightly, and the corners of her eyes were wet. Her beautiful eyes were covered with a layer of mist. Of course, she didn't want to leave Jiang Tian. She only felt that being away from Jiang Tian for half a minute made her heart itch. But she also understood the preciousness of this array. It could be said that Jiang Tian had risked his life to get it. She shouldn't waste it. Seeing that she was about to cry, Jiang Tian pulled her to a secluded place and comforted her. Qing'er, do you know how long your lifespan can be extended if you cultivate well? Hundreds of years or even thousands of years. Compared to this long lifespan, a few months of not seeing each other is only equivalent to a few days. Humph. Don't you know the old saying that a day without seeing each other is like 3 autumns? Qing'er pouted as if she had been wronged, giving off a cute and innocent feeling. I haven't seen you for a few days. Humph, it doesn't matter if you're heartless, but for me, it's a few years. Seeing his beloved wife's cute appearance, Jiang Tian's heart was filled with sweetness and a burst of bitterness. Now, it could be seen that Qing'er's feelings for him were no longer the same as before. Their love was deeply rooted. Jiang Tian also cherished every moment he spent with her, and didn't want to be separated. Qing'er, I promise, after you absorb all the spiritual energy in the array, I will definitely bring you back. It was just that Jiang Tian had returned after 10,000 years of cultivation. He was used to seeing too many people separated by life and death. His Tao heart was far stronger than ordinary people. He understood the principle of not losing the big picture for the small. After comforting her, Qing'er's tears turned into laughter. Jiang Tian also felt relieved. Regarding the construction of the laboratory, Jiang Tian also had a plan in mind. In his previous life, he studied at the Jinling Pharmaceutical University's second-tier college, Renda College. He had a deep impression of a professor named Huang Zhihui. This professor had been researching the modern application of Chinese medicine and proposed the ultra-micro-molecular extraction technology. His research results were also awarded the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2012. But now he was just an ordinary associate professor. Moreover, his research was not recognized by others. It could be said that he was nameless and poor. If Jiang Tian invested in a laboratory for him now, he would definitely be loyal to him. During this period of time, Jiang Tian also read a few of Professor Huang Zhihui's papers on the internet. He found that his so-called ultra-micromolecular theory was actually very similar to the spiritual energy theory of the cultivation world. Chapter 215. Jiang Tian believed that if he combined his knowledge of alchemy with Professor Yang's knowledge of modern medicine, he would be able to achieve a rapid breakthrough. After Jiang Tian told his mother about this idea, she immediately agreed. The Medicine King Group planned to invest 100 million yuan in the Jinling Pharmaceutical University to build a new laboratory, and Jiang Tian would join as a researcher of the Medicine King Group. On this day, after bidding farewell to Qing'er at the airport, Jiang Tian went to the Medicine King Group and drove with his mother to find Professor Huang Zhihui. It had been a few days since the Lantern Festival, and the Jinling Pharmaceutical University had just started school. The campus was full of youthful smiles and energetic figures. Looking at the familiar trees, the lawns and the crisscrossing roads, Jiang Tian's face showed a trace of a long-lost smile. Back then, it was here that he had spent 4 wonderful years. Now those yellowed old photos appeared one after another in front of his eyes. The staff residence was located on the west side of the Jinling Pharmaceutical University. The building looked a bit old, and the mottled walls were covered with withered creepers. The grass and trees looked as if no one had trimmed them. The cement floor was full of potholes, and it gave a sense of decay. Is this the place? After asking along the way, Jiang Tian parked the car in front of a small building and got out with his mother. For some reason, when Jiang Tian saw the small building and the surrounding grass and trees, he faintly felt a throbbing pain in his heart. It was very uncomfortable. Moreover, there seemed to be a sense of familiarity. His mother looked at the unit number on the doorway and smiled bitterly. This is the place. How can a university professor live here? The development of Chinese medicine is not good now. The Chinese medicine and pharmacy major has been unable to accept students all year round. These professors can't work part-time like the finance and computer science professors. With a fixed salary, how can they live in a good house? Jiang Tian said lightly. They contacted the dean of the Chinese medicine school, Luo Wen, but he hadn't come yet. The two waited downstairs and talked about the details of the meeting. Tian, how much do you think we should pay Professor Yang? Mom asked. Their annual salary in school is only 70 to 80,000 yuan. If I give him an annual salary of 150,000 yuan, he will probably be overjoyed, Jiang Tian said calmly. Tian, although our Medicine King Group is in dire straits, we have always valued our researchers. You can't give them so little, right? Even our most basic researchers can get an annual salary of 200,000. Mom rolled her eyes at Jiang Tian. She felt that Jiang Tian was too ruthless. It's fine. I've already asked around. I heard that Professor Huang has a daughter who's mentally unstable. She needs a lot of money for her research, so she needs a lot of money. 200,000 a year is already a life-saving straw for him, Jiang Tian said indifferently. At this time, a middle-aged man in his 40s walked over quickly with a briefcase under his arm. He waved his hand from afar and bowed. Director Zhang, you're here. I'm sorry, but I was delayed by a few students who were asking me questions. The middle-aged man had a tall figure, and he managed his body well. He didn't have the greasy feeling of a middle-aged man with a potbelly. He might not be young anymore, but Su Tao could tell that he was a handsome man in his early years. He wore a pair of gold-rimmed spectacles that made him look refined and courteous. But with Jiang Tian's eyesight, he could see the cunning hidden in the middle-aged man's eyes. It's fine, Dean Luo. We just arrived. Zhang Wanqing smiled gently and politely shook hands with the middle-aged man. Jiang Tian, this is... Mom wanted to introduce the middle-aged man to Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian smiled. There's no need for introductions. I know Dean Luo. He even taught me in the past. Jiang Tian had a deep impression of Luo Wen, which was also extremely poor. When Jiang Tian was in university, Luo Wen was already the vice dean of the school. He was also the youngest vice dean in history. Isn't this Jiang Tian? Why are you and Director Zhang? Luo Wen was taken aback and asked in disbelief. I'm just a researcher in the Medicine King Group's research lab. Jiang Tian didn't reveal his true identity. He still wanted to enjoy a peaceful life on campus. If he were to reveal his identity as the Crown Prince of the Medicine King Group, and cause everyone to treat him with trepidation and caution, it would be too boring. Oh, that's not bad, not bad. Luo Wen wanted to shake hands with Jiang Tian, but Jiang Tian didn't even look at him. In fact, in his previous life, the Medicine King Group had chosen to cooperate with the Jinling University of Pharmaceutical Sciences in a critical moment. Jiang Tian was even summoned back to Jinling by his mom to help with the research lab. However, they had chosen the wrong person to work with. Dean Luo Wen of the Chinese Medicine King Group. Dean Luo Wen was a National Science and Technology Award winner, a Chongjiang scholar, and a special allowance specialist from the Government Affairs Council. But in fact, this guy was a complete academic thief. His research results were all bought or directly plagiarized. In the 3 or 4 years of cooperation, he had embezzled and squandered all of the Medicine King Group's research funds. In the end, he didn't come up with anything decent. At that time, the Jiang family and the Medicine King Group were on the verge of collapse. They couldn't even take care of themselves. How could they have the time to pursue Luo Wen's responsibility? They just let him get away with it. Seeing Jiang Tian's indifferent attitude, Luo Wen was furious. He said arrogantly, Jiang Tian, you were a good-for-nothing and skipped classes every day. I didn't expect you to sneak into the Medicine King Group's research lab. You're quite capable. His voice was very loud. He was obviously talking to Zhang Wanqing. His mom was taken aback. She hated it when people talked to her son in such a rude way. She was about to explode, but Jiang Tian signaled her with his eyes to keep quiet. Then he said calmly, Haha, Mr. Luo, I'm just dealing with some basic data in the Medicine King Group. Call me Dean Luo. Luo Wen frowned impatiently. He snorted and said arrogantly, Once this research lab is established, I'll be its director. You'll work under me in the future. Don't mess around like you did when you were a student. Otherwise, don't blame me for not taking our relationship as master and disciple into account. He was so proud and arrogant that he seemed to be able to control Jiang Tian's life and death. Alright, it's getting late. Let's go see Professor Huang Zhihui, Zhang Wanqing said coldly. They were just about to walk towards the entrance when suddenly, with a splash, a basin of water was poured down from the second floor. Jiang Tian's divine sense was very sharp. He pulled his mom away and took a few steps back to avoid the water. However, Luo Wen couldn't dodge in time. Ouch! The water splashed all over his face. Damn it, yellow monkey. How dare you splash water on me? Luo Wen wiped the water off his face. It seemed to still be warm. He rushed to the second floor. When he knocked on the door, he saw a foot washing basin on the floor. A young girl wearing slippers was standing there in a panic. There were still traces of water on her feet, so he understood that she had splashed the water to wash her feet. The young girl's eyes and brows were still young. She didn't wear any makeup on her delicate and pretty face, but it made her look even more pure. She wore a shirt, a light-colored jacket, a scarf with pink cheeks, and casual pants. Her body was delicate and slender. The young girl's eyes were charming. Her eyebrows were slightly furrowed. Her hair was pulled up into a bun. Her straight hair hung by her ears, outlining her oval jawline. Such a young girl, standing there quietly, had a kind of picturesque beauty. Luo Wen couldn't help but say angrily, "Huang Linger, what's wrong with you? I'm the dean of your school. How dare you splash foot-washing water on me? Believe it or not, I'll expel you." The young girl's delicate body trembled. She stood there with a bit of awkwardness and fear on her face. However, the moment she saw Jiang Tian enter, a trace of hidden bitterness and disgust flashed in the depths of her beautiful eyes. Jiang Tian looked at the young girl. He couldn't help but feel shocked. He finally understood why he had felt such a throbbing pain in his heart when he was downstairs. He rubbed his forehead and sighed inwardly. This world was a bit too small. He really didn't expect her to be Professor Huang Zhihui's daughter. He didn't expect her family to be burdened with such hardships. He didn't expect her father to be driven to the point of no return by debt. He didn't expect her mother to be driven to the brink of a mental breakdown. He also didn't expect her to shoulder this responsibility on his own shoulders. In his past life, Jiang Tian was still in his 4th year of university. He was greedy for Huang Linger's beauty and alluring body. He also needed to fix the EQ he'd lost after being abandoned by Meng Yao. As a result, he pursued Huang Linger, who had just entered university. Huang Linger, on the other hand, saw how Jiang Tian spent money on campus. She hoped that he had the ability to solve her family's 2 million debt problem. After some hesitation, she accepted Jiang Tian's pursuit. He still remembered that Christmas, when the first snow fell. Jiang Tian coaxed and tricked the girl into a hotel and took her first time. At that time, Huang Linger was completely infatuated with Jiang Tian. She trusted him wholeheartedly. She was only in her 1st year of university, but she loved Jiang Tian like he was her little brother. She knew that Jiang Tian liked to play games. She didn't sleep or rest for 10 days straight, leveling her game account to the max level just to support Jiang Tian. Every morning, the little girl would buy breakfast and send it to Jiang Tian's room in a thermal box. She didn't want to disturb Jiang Tian's rest, so she asked his roommates to deliver it to Jiang Tian. However, Jiang Tian was living a luxurious life. The living expenses he received from his mother weren't enough for him to squander. How could he be willing and have the ability to shoulder Huang Linger's family's debt? He even thought that Huang Linger was just a girl who was greedy for his money. Until one day, Huang Linger told him that she might be pregnant. Jiang Tian decisively dismissed her as trouble. Huang Linger was devastated. He heard that she cried in the dormitory for 3 days and 3 nights without eating or drinking. She even tried to commit suicide by cutting her wrists. However, she didn't pester Jiang Tian this time. So Jiang Tian didn't take it to heart. After Jiang Tian graduated, he heard that Huang Linger suddenly dropped out of school. It was said that she was mentally unstable and had to take antidepressants often. Huang Linger's best friend, Ding Jiabi, had even looked for Jiang Tian, hoping that Jiang Tian would comfort her and guide her emotions. However, Jiang Tian was heartless at that time. He didn't know what this kind of hurt meant. So he quickly forgot about this poor girl. When he heard news about Huang Linger again, it was Christmas 2012, a month before Jiang Tian committed suicide. In the alumni WeChat group, someone posted an obituary. Huang Linger committed suicide by jumping off a building due to severe depression. Chapter 216. That day, some students reposted the news report and posted photos of alumni lighting candles and laying wreaths at the spot where Huang Linger fell. "I think it's just downstairs." Now Jiang Tian finally understood why he felt waves of uncontrollable sadness in his heart downstairs. At this moment, Jiang Tian noticed the overlapping scars on her right wrist and understood that she did not commit suicide at that time. I don't know how much pain and suffering she went through back then. For a young girl like her to see the darkness of human nature for the first time, it must have been a devastating blow. Jiang Tian sighed in his heart. He couldn't help but feel a trace of regret. However, Jiang Tian knew more about her suicide attempt than most people. It wasn't as simple as being let down by him. It was because she was violated. After Huang Linger committed suicide, Jiang Tian contacted Ding Jiabi, and found out that she was violated by a young master in Jinling in March 2008. Her depression worsened, and she even showed signs of schizophrenia. She held on bitterly for 3 years, but in the end she couldn't hold on. She jumped and ended her miserable life. I remember that young master was called Nie Feng. Jiang Tian's eyes flashed with murderous intent when he thought of this. Huang Zhihui walked out quickly when he heard the commotion. He glared at Huang Linger and scolded. "What are you doing? Dean Luo and Professor Zhang are distinguished guests. How dare you splash water on them to wash their feet?" Huang Zhihui was short, and had a protruding mouth and monkey cheeks. He had a wretched temperament, and his clothes were tattered. His sleeves and collar were frayed. If Jiang Tian hadn't been reborn, he wouldn't have imagined that a yellow monkey like him would win the Nobel Prize in Medicine. Huang Zhihui bowed and apologized to Luo Wen. "Dean Luo, I'm really sorry. Ling Er didn't do it on purpose. Please let her go this time." "Yellow monkey, what kind of daughter are you teaching? We were talking to Chairman Zhang downstairs. How could she not hear us? She clearly did it on purpose." Just now, Huang Linger had splashed him with hot water, but now that the spring festival had just passed, the temperature was very low, so it quickly turned into cold water. Luo Wen's face immediately turned pale, and he shivered. When Huang Linger saw her father come out, she picked up the foot basin and hurried into her room. Bang! He slammed the door shut. At this moment, Jiang Tian's heart suddenly trembled. "Let's go, Dean. Let's go get changed." Huang Zhihui hurriedly pulled Rowan into the room to change. Huang Zhihui's wife boiled a pot of ginger tea for him to drink. Only then did Luo Wen's face regain its color. Jiang Tian looked at Huang Linger's mother, and realized that she inherited her beauty from her mother. Although Huang Linger's mother was almost 40 years old and dressed very plainly, she still had delicate features and elegant eyebrows. Her skin was also very good, but there seemed to be an unconcealable sadness between her brows. Jiang Tian looked around the room. There were only 2 bowls of porridge and a pile of pickles on the table. The furniture was old, and could only be described as bare. It seemed that the Huang family's life was indeed very poor. After the guest and the host settled down, Zhang Wanqing stated the purpose of her visit. Huang Zhihui said gratefully, "Thank you for your trust, and thank you for your support in the development of Chinese medicine. I will do my best to live up to Chairman Zhang's expectations." Luo Wen drank a cup of ginger tea and calmed down. He put on the airs of a dean, crossed his legs, and smiled proudly. "Yellow monkey, this opportunity is hard to come by. You must show me results within 3 years. Otherwise, I won't be able to report to Chairman Zhang. If you can't produce anything by then, it won't just be a matter of you not being able to keep your job in the laboratory. You might even lose your teaching position." Yes, Dean Luo. Don't worry, I will do my best." Huang Zhihui suppressed the disgust in his heart, and put on a flattering smile. In the room, Huang Linger's heart was pounding. She couldn't calm down no matter how hard she tried. She had mixed feelings. She never thought that she would meet the man who had hurt her the most, but who had also brought her the most happiness. When she heard her father's servile words, she felt bitter and self-reproachful. Why am I so disappointing? Why did she commit suicide just because he abandoned her once? Why did she get depression? I should have been stronger. If it weren't for my depression, my father would have continued his research and maintained his pride and dignity as a scholar. Huang Zhihui's previous 3 papers had all reached the top international academic standards. However, in order to treat his daughter's illness and carry out his own research, he had secretly sold these papers to Luo Wen. It could be said that if it weren't for Huang Zhihui's papers, Luo Wen wouldn't have been able to become a dean, or even a professor. She hugged a teddy bear pillow and moved lightly to the door. She peeked at Jiang Tian through the gap. When she saw Jiang Tian calmly sipping his tea as if nothing had happened, a deep resentment appeared on her face. She also felt a little annoyed and disgusted. Chairman Zhang said that the most basic researcher's salary was 200,000 yuan, but he only gave my father 150,000 yuan. He was too evil and cunning. This bastard took advantage of me back then, and now he's bullying my father. Just like back then, he used those sweet words to deceive me. I shouldn't have splashed that basin of water. I should have splashed a pot of hot oil or sulfuric acid. However, at this moment, Jiang Tian suddenly opened his mouth and said, "Director Luo, you seem to have made a mistake. We didn't acknowledge you as our laboratory director." "What?" Rowan's face stiffened as he looked at Zhang Wanqing. He furrowed his brows and said, "I'm the dean of this hospital and also the professor with the highest academic standards. If I don't become the laboratory director, then who will?" He smiled contemptuously. "Are you going to let the yellow monkey be the director? Dean Luo, you're joking. How can I?" Huang Zhihui hurriedly waved his hand and smiled. "I don't recognize your academic standards. As long as I'm here, you can't be the laboratory director." Jiang Tian lowered his eyes and blew at the foam on the tea leaves in his cup. "Impudent. Who do you think you are? You were a bad student back then. You always skipped classes and caused trouble. You failed countless exams. Now you're just an ordinary researcher. What right do you have to question my academic standards?" Luo Wen flew into a rage. The veins on his forehead bulged as he slammed the table and pointed at Jiang Tian's nose as he scolded furiously. He had to be cautious when dealing with Zhang Wanqing, the god of wealth. However, Jiang Tian was just an ordinary researcher under Zhang Wanqing. He was also his former student. How could he enter Luo Wen's eyes and make him feel even the slightest bit of fear? "As far as I know, your academic papers were all copied. Or, did Professor Huang write them on your behalf?" Jiang Tian said indifferently with a calm expression as he sipped his tea. Luo Wen was quite a weirdo. He was so greedy for money that he didn't even try to hide it. Back in the day, Jiang Tian and his friends failed their exams. Luo Wen would hint at them to give them gifts, and then leak the makeup exam questions to them. If they didn't give them anything, even if they passed the makeup exam, he would still give them a failing grade. Moreover, he always took advantage of the students for things like student leadership selection, postgraduate admission, and scholarships. The most hateful thing was that Luo Wen liked to harass female students. He got physical with them and spread rumors throughout the school. However, he didn't show any restraint and was unscrupulous. For this reason, Jiang Tian and his friends resented Luo Wen. Even a few years after graduation, they still cursed and scolded him at every class reunion. They prayed that he would die in a car crash. Jiang Tian remembered that in 2011, a girl exposed his sexual harassment online. It attracted a lot of media attention, and the school's disciplinary committee stepped in to investigate. News of Luo Wen's academic corruption, and sexual harassment of female students and teachers came to light. He was fired from his position and arrested by the prosecution. Naturally, many students clapped their hands in joy and rushed to spread the news. However, at that time, Jiang Tian was already in trouble and couldn't even take care of himself. How could he be in the mood to worry about Luo Wen? However, at this time, Jiang Tian saw that Luo Wen had repeatedly disrespected Professor Huang Zhihui. Naturally, he didn't hold back. When Luo Wen heard this, his face darkened. His eyes emitted a cold, murderous intent. He turned his head and glared at Huang Zhihui. Huang Zhihui shrunk his head and shook it with a pleading and fearful expression, indicating that he had not said a single word. Luo Wen calmed down and his shock turned into anger. He pointed at Jiang Tian's nose and complained to Zhang Wanqing. "Chairwoman Zhang, are you going to let your employee slander me like this? How dare he disrespect me again and again? I really doubt the sincerity of your company's cooperation with our school. If he doesn't apologize to me, then this cooperation is off." Although Zhang Wanqing didn't know how her son got the information, her son was now her backbone. She listened to Jiang Tian's every word and trusted him. Zhang Wanqing's expression didn't change in the face of Luo Wen's threat. She slowly sipped her tea and smiled disdainfully. "Dean Luo, to tell you the truth, we're looking for Professor Huang Zhihui, not your school or Dean Luo. If you really want to do this, then let's go. If you insist, then this cooperation is off." What? Luo Wen was dumbfounded. He couldn't believe it. This cooperation with the Medicine King Group would earn them 100 million in research funds. This was unprecedented for the Jinling Pharmaceutical University. For him, this was also the most brilliant achievement he had ever achieved since he became the dean. If the Medicine King Group really chose not to cooperate, then it would be a huge blow to his reputation. Luo Wen's tone softened as he thought of this. He smiled apologetically and said, Chairwoman Zhang, forgive me for being too impulsive. However, you can't just deny my academic standards based on Jiang Tian's words. He curled his lips in disdain and said, You have no idea. That kid was a total failure at the Jinling University. I don't even know what his parents did to raise such an idiot. He even sneaked into the Medicine King Group's laboratory. Zhang Wanqing's graceful and fair face darkened. The aura of a successful career woman was completely exposed. She smiled faintly and said, Haha Dean Luo, to be honest, Jiang Tian is my son. I didn't teach him well. I've embarrassed myself in front of you. Chapter 217. Hey. What? Jiang Tian. He's actually your son. Luo Wen was dumbfounded and his face turned pale from shock. That's right. He's fully responsible for the construction of this laboratory. His words today are my words. If he says you can't be the laboratory director, then you can't be. Zhang Wanqing said lightly with a faint smile. Chairman Zhang, look at this mess. I really didn't mean it. Please don't take it to heart. Luo Wen's face immediately crumbled. He could no longer maintain his arrogance or smugness. He stood up and stretched out both hands, wanting to shake Jiang Tian's hand. He smiled apologetically and said, Jiang Tian, no, young Master Jiang, you're too low-key. You actually didn't say anything about your distinguished status on campus. Otherwise, wouldn't I have taken care of you back then? Come on, let's get to know each other again. Jiang Tian didn't even look at him. Luo Wen looked embarrassed. He pretended to be holding a glass of water and retracted his hand without a trace. He smiled and said, Young Master Jiang, I know that I criticized you a little too much when we were in school, but that was for your own good. I hope that you won't hold a grudge against me and won't affect our current cooperation. Don't worry, as long as you give me the position of laboratory director, I guarantee you that I'll be able to produce results within a year. The annual salary of a laboratory director was far more than that of an ordinary researcher. It was more than 1,000,000 yuan, which was 7 to 8 times Luo Wen's current salary. How could he throw away such a fat piece of meat? Jiang Tian didn't even look at him and said, Actually, I'm very respectful and grateful for your strict discipline back then. But I don't think you're qualified to take on this position. I'm just doing business. Luo Wen didn't give up and forced a smile. Then who do you think is qualified to be the laboratory director? Professor Huang Zhihui. What? Me the laboratory director? Huang Zhihui was stunned and couldn't believe it. All these years, he had sold most of his academic achievements to Luo Wen in order to treat his daughter's illness. A small number of his papers were published, but due to the lack of popularity of the research field, they were not recognized by the academic community. But now, the position of a laboratory director with an annual salary of 1 million had fallen into his lap. It was simply a blessing from the heavens. Professor Huang, I believe in your research and academic standards. I also believe that you will achieve great things. I hope you will live up to my expectations. Jiang Tian said indifferently. You should be short of money right now. I'll give you 2 years of salary in advance. What? My salary in advance? If I don't produce results for the Medicine King Group, I'll be worse than a pig or a dog. Huang Zhihui was so excited that his eyes were a little moist. For him, an annual salary of more than 1 million yuan could change his entire living situation and treat his daughter's illness. More importantly, as the director of this laboratory, he could carry out his own research and fulfill his ambitions. Over the years, in order to conduct research on the modern extraction of Chinese medicine, he couldn't get any research funding. He even bought a lot of research equipment out of his own pocket. He was left with nothing and owed a huge debt. His daughter's illness was not treated in time, and even his wife had a mental breakdown. She quarreled with him every day and was on the verge of divorce. It could be said that for the sake of his research, he had given everything he had. He didn't even hesitate to sell his dignity. He wasn't famous in the academic field, nor was he recognized by the academic community. He was only an ordinary associate professor at the age of 45. He never expected that Jiang Tian would trust him so much and regard him so highly. Not only did Jiang Tian take time out of his busy schedule to pay him a visit, he even gave him 2 years of salary in advance. He was so touched that he didn't know what to say. Thinking about the bitterness in the past few years, Huang Zhihui couldn't hold back his tears for a moment. He couldn't hold back his tears. He was a grown man, but he was crying like a child. His wife, who was standing beside him, also couldn't help wiping her tears. Seeing Huang Zhihui crying like this, Zhang Wanqing also felt a little sad. She smiled and comforted. Professor Huang, don't be sad. Our Medicine King group will definitely support your research in the future. Your days will only get better and better. Looking at Luo Wen, Jiang Tian faintly said, Dean Luo, I would like to be a lecturer in the school. What do you think? His words sounded like a negotiation, but the tone of his voice was unquestionable. It was completely commanding. His eyes were also cold, as if he was a high and mighty god looking down at ants. Luo Wen was so angry that he almost fainted. Luo Wen cursed in his mind. You ignorant piece of trash. You can't even memorize the compendium of Materia Medica and 1,000 gold prescriptions. And you want to be a lecturer? Isn't this the biggest joke in the world? However, Jiang Tian was his god of wealth. He couldn't refuse. With Jiang Tian's personality, if he couldn't let Jiang Tian get what he wanted, Jiang Tian would even move the laboratory out of the Jinling Pharmaceutical University and choose to work with Professor Huang Zhihui personally. Once the Medicine King group left the Jinling Pharmaceutical University, he wouldn't be able to get any political achievements. At this point, he could only pinch his nose and swallow this disgusting pile of shit. He even had to praise the taste. With a smile he said, Young Master Jiang, you're a descendant of the Medicine King Jiang family. You have a profound family background. Just wait for them to gang up on you. Although he couldn't do anything to Jiang Tian, he was determined not to let Jiang Tian have an easy time at the Jinling Pharmaceutical University. So this is the legendary death by flattery. I'm so smart. Rowan proudly hummed a tune as he swaggered out of the office. On the way back to the Medicine King group, his mother couldn't help but ask curiously, Tian, or if you want to do research, just do it. Why do you still want to be a lecturer? It's a complete waste of time. Mom, do you remember when I was in college? There was a girl who committed suicide for me? Jiang Tian was silent for a moment before he spoke with a complicated look in his eyes. I remember, kids sometimes. His mother wanted to say something but stopped. There was a hint of blame in her eyes. However, when she thought about how Jiang Tian's personality had changed, she didn't say anything in the end. She just sighed and said, At that time, I tried to contact that girl and give her some compensation, but she refused to see me. That girl is also a person with a backbone. Jiang Tian's eyes flashed with a trace of vicissitudes. He said softly, That girl is Professor Huang Zhihui's daughter. What? Her? No wonder she poured a basin of water to wash her feet. So that basin of water was for you. You little brat. His mother shook her head and sighed helplessly. However, in the next moment, she seemed to have suddenly thought of something and was suddenly shocked. She said earnestly, Jiang Tian, some things are in the past, so let bygones be bygones. You already have Qing'er now. Even if you feel extremely guilty towards that girl, you can't have any other thoughts. Mom, I understand, don't worry. Jiang Tian nodded and fell into deep thought. It was as if there was an invisible hand of fate that made the world so small and pulled the two of them together. However, the current Jiang Tian wasn't as promiscuous as he was in college. He owed Huang Linger a lot, but debt and guilt didn't equal love. He already had Qing'er and was very satisfied and happy. Naturally, he couldn't have any ambiguous relationship with her. However, since he owed her in his previous life, he could prevent the tragedy from happening in this life and give her a stable and happy life. That was no problem. Chapter 218. When Jiang Tian's appointment notice was posted on the Jinling Pharmaceutical University's official website, the entire school was in an uproar. Countless people were talking about this guest professor who had just arrived. Have you heard? There's a young guest professor in the School of Chinese Medicine. I think he's only 25 years old. That can't be. A guest professor must either have an extremely high status in society or have extremely high attainments in the academic field. Otherwise, it's impossible for him to be a guest professor. He's only 25 years old. What gives him the right to be a guest professor? It's true. I've seen the photo. He's really young. Could it be that he's a rich second-generation heir? If that's the case, I have to go take a look. Who knows, I might be able to hook up with a rich husband. Yeah, I plan to take this course too. Although it's an elective course, the credits are very high. It'll be convenient for me to graduate and get my diploma. Really? Then I want to take this course too. Just like that, before the first class, most of the pharmaceutical department already knew his name. These days, Lin Monong had been having a hard time. Originally, she had already obtained her doctorate and obtained the qualifications to stay in the school to teach. She was about to become a lecturer. However, her mentor, who was originally the vice dean, had been transferred to Yenjing University's medical school and could not take her away. As a result, she was suppressed by Dean Luowon, who had a conflict with her mentor. Now, she was only given the title of an assistant professor. What should I do? Why don't you resign? Lin Meng frowned. Her pretty face was filled with bitterness. Monong, don't worry. There's always a way out. Immediately, a few young teachers looked over and comforted her gently. Lin Monong could be said to be the most beautiful female teacher in the pharmaceutical department. She was the dream lover of many unmarried male teachers. Even some old professors could not help but take a few more glances. Ms. Lin, did you know that Jiang Tian has come to our school to be a guest professor? Suddenly, Ding Jiabi rushed into the teaching office of the Chinese medicine school and found Lin Monong. She grabbed her hand and said angrily. Ding Jiabi was in the same batch as Jiang Tian. She was also Huang Linger's best friend and the daughter of a professor in the school. Of course, Ding Jiabi was outstanding in her studies. She wasn't a student of the Ren College that Jiang Tian was studying at. Instead, she was a top student of the pharmaceutical university. Moreover, after completing her undergraduate degree, Ding Jiabi continued her postgraduate studies and obtained her master's degree. Now that she had graduated, she had stayed in the school to take up some administrative work. I know I'm watching, said a young associate professor sourly. What are the school leaders thinking? Why did they give him a guest professor so easily? Someone slammed the table and shouted angrily. Depraved. How depraved? Even Lin Fengmian, the most senior and most qualified professor in the school, shook his head and sighed. At that moment, Jiang Tian walked into the office accompanied by Luowon. Luowon clapped his hands and smiled happily. This is our new guest professor, Jiang Tian. Everyone, please give him a round of applause. He was the first to clap, but very few people responded. Only Lin Monong clapped. He's so young. What's his background? Our school has become a gold-plated place for ignorant and incompetent second-generation heirs. He was so bad at his studies back then, failing every subject. May I ask if he knows how to write prescriptions? Does he know what it means to make medicine? Everyone whispered to each other, looking at Jiang Tian with disdain. Jiang Tian smiled casually and said, I'll be colleagues with all of you in the future. I hope to interact more with all of you. Dean Luo, I still have a class to attend. I'll take my leave first. A professor immediately stood up and left with a cold expression. Oh, I have an academic conference outside. I'll take my leave first. Another lecturer also left, not forgetting to glare at Jiang Tian. Is someone like this worth wasting my time on? What kind of welcome party is this? I'm leaving too. My child is sick. I'm really sorry. Some of the lecturers really couldn't think of any reason, even using the excuse of a fire at home. Nonsense. In the end, even Lin Fengmian couldn't stand it any longer. He slammed the stainless steel teacup on the table with a loud bang. He got up and walked out of his seat, saying coldly, I'll have to ask the principal some other day what kind of ability a certain person has to be our guest professor. In an instant, most of the lecturers and professors in the office had left. The remaining few people looked at each other, and the atmosphere suddenly turned cold. Seeing this, Luo Wenla gloated, but his face was full of embarrassment. He rubbed his hands and said, Professor Jiang, I'm sorry. You know that these intellectuals have always thought of themselves as noble and virtuous. It's fine, Dean Luo. Jiang Tian smiled lazily and said, when I give a lecture later, they'll all bow down to me. When he said this, Luo Wenla and the rest of the faculty were so angry that their noses almost became crooked. Kid, didn't you see everyone's reaction? Can you be more shameless? Can't you have some self-awareness? That's great. I'm looking forward to it. When the time comes, I'll gather everyone together and listen to Zhang's exciting lecture. Luo Wenla suppressed his disgust and revulsion and patted Jiang Tian's shoulder. He then looked at Lin Manong and reprimanded, Manong, you'll be Professor Zhang's teaching assistant from now on. I hope you'll cherish this rare opportunity to learn. Luo Wenla is trying to ruin someone. How ruthless. A few of the young scholars looked at each other and shook their heads with sighs. What kind of academic achievements could Lin Manong produce if she followed such a gold-plated idiot? Her future was bleak. Unexpectedly, Lin Manong nodded happily and said, Okay. I'll definitely cooperate with Professor Jiang. The male teachers were all stunned. However, when they thought about it, their hearts sank. This kid might be a rich second-generation heir. He's rich. Could Lin Manong have taken a liking to him? After Luo Wenla left, Lin Manong immediately smiled sweetly and said with sparkling eyes, Professor Jiang, let me take you to your office to take a look. She suspected that the Master Kong she saw at Poyang Lake was Jiang Tian. She couldn't help but think smugly. This time, I'll definitely catch you by the tail. Let's see how long you can hide it. Jiang Tian gladly agreed. After the two of them left, the young male teachers beat their chests and stamped their feet, wailing and wailing. It's over. I'm afraid this kid will snatch Professor Lin away. Yet an undergraduate student can be a visiting professor. How rich must his family be? He must be a rich second-generation heir. Professor Lin definitely can't resist his charm. No, it should be the charm of money. Sigh, I didn't expect Professor Lin to be unable to resist the temptation of money. At that moment, Ding Jiabi looked at a handsome young man and said coquettishly, Li Linxian, you're in danger. Li Linxian graduated from Wuxia Medical University and had received guidance from the Red Wall Imperial Physician. His academic standards were high, and he had produced several important papers as a doctoral student. Now he was an associate professor and had hopes of becoming a professor before the age of 30. In the traditional Chinese medicine school, he and Lin Manong were a match made in heaven. But now that Lin Manong was so enthusiastic about Jiang Tian, Ding Jiabi immediately began to worry for him. Who does he think he is? I won't let him stay in the Chinese medicine school. Li Linshuan's face darkened, and his eyes emitted deep resentment. He then left after saying those words. Ding Jiabi smiled smugly and waved her fist behind his back. She said coquettishly, Professor Li, do your best. I'll wait for you to show your academic standards and beat him until he's looking for his teeth on the ground. Chapter 219. At this moment, Jiang Tian was accompanied by Lin Manong to an independent office on the 5th floor of the administration building of the School of Chinese Medicine. The office was large, more than 100 square meters. It was luxuriously decorated, with clean windows and a variety of office facilities. Professor Lin, do you still remember Huang Linger? Jiang Tian sat down on the sofa and asked calmly. Of course. Lin Manong was slightly stunned and a little unnatural. He forced a smile and said, She's the daughter of Associate Professor Huang Zhihui. Moreover, I taught her several courses when she was studying in the pharmaceutical university. How is she now? Jiang Tian asked. After that incident, she took a year off because of depression. Now she's studying again. She's in her 4th year now. Lin Manong sighed and said, This is a small gift for her. Don't tell her it's from me. Jiang Tian took out a protective jade talisman. It's rare for you to have such thoughts. Lin Manong took it and was silent for a moment. Then he asked tentatively, Do you still want to be with her? Of course not. Jiang Tian smiled faintly and said, I'm already married. Ha! You're already married. Lin Manong was suddenly disappointed. He forced a smile and said, Well, that's good. This way you won't hurt her. Jiang Tian's class in the pharmaceutical university was held once a week. It was taught to all the students in the pharmaceutical university, not limited to undergraduate students, graduate students, or doctoral students. In fact, Jiang Tian also wanted to find some talents in the process of teaching. Just like that, Jiang Tian's teaching position in the pharmaceutical university was confirmed. Jiang Tian took away all of Huang Zhihui's papers and experimental data, and began to study how to combine his academic achievements in the modernization of Chinese medicine with his knowledge of alchemy and pharmacy. Leaving Jinling University, Jiang Tian began to drive a Passat that he took from his mother. He strolled around Jinling, looking for a suitable medicine field for large-scale cultivation of elixirs. In fact, Shennong School had set up a spirit gathering array, and Shennong School could provide a lot of medicinal materials. However, Jiang Tian still wanted to cultivate some of the core medicinal materials himself. Searching along the way, Jiang Tian turned to Mount Fulong, which was 3 kilometers to the west of Jinling. It was near the Tangshan hot spring, and his heart skipped a beat. Hiding the wind and gathering the water. The 4 seasons are as warm as spring. The earth contains the spiritual energy of the earth veins. It can be used greatly. Standing at the peak of Mount Fulong, Jiang Tian narrowed his eyes and carefully observed the terrain. The spiritual qi here was so abundant that it was even higher than the No. 1 King's Villa near Lion Peak and Embroidery Lake. The spiritual qi in the earth vein covered an area of several hundred acres. It was definitely enough to set up a super formation and a medicinal field. Back at the villa, Jiang Tian saw his mother and immediately asked, "Mom, can we buy that piece of land on Tiger Subdue Mountain?" After returning to Jinling, Jiang Tian lived in his mother's mansion. Yi Ziwei also lived there for the convenience of her work. "Why do you want to buy that? Our family isn't in the real estate business." Zhang Wanqing asked, not knowing the reason. "I want to turn that place into a medicinal field." Jiang Tian said, "It will be the base of the Medicine King organization." "That piece of land is a hot potato." Zhang Wanqing smiled bitterly. "Do you know that the tycoon of Jinling, Nie Zhonghai, is also eyeing that piece of land?" The Tangshan hot spring was originally one of the 4 sacred hot springs in Wuxia. Since the Southern Dynasty, generations of officials and dignitaries loved to build villas and bathe there. It was said that during the Northern and Southern dynasties, there was an empress who used the spring water to treat her skin disease, and was named the Sacred Spring by the emperor. In modern times, Jiang Gong loved this place so much that he built the Tao Hut Villa for Jiang Gong and Madame Mei Ling's exclusive hot spring villa. Until now, many people had their eyes on that piece of land. Whether it was to build villas or commercial complexes, they would definitely make a lot of money. "The Nie family and I are really fated." Jiang Tian's eyes narrowed, and a murderous look appeared in his eyes. Other than the Chen family and the Sun family, there were 3 big clans that had attacked the Jiang family back then. The other one was the Nie family. In his previous life, Nie Zhonghai's son, Nie Mingyuan, had tried his best to get in touch with Yi Ziwei and found out a lot of trade secrets, which became the most vicious weapon to attack the Jiang family. The Nie family could be said to be the most hidden enemy. For a long time, Nie Mingyuan had appeared as Yi Ziwei's suitor. Who would have thought that he had the ambition to take over the Medicine King organization from the beginning? Combined with the information he obtained in this life, Jiang Tian also understood. It turned out that Nie Feng, who had violated Huang Linger, was also the younger brother of Nie Zhonghai's youngest son, Nie Mingyuan. Enemies are bound to meet. Yes, Nie Zhonghai is very powerful and can be ranked in the top 5 in Jinling. He can suppress the Sun family of Dynasty Real Estate and the Chen family of 100 Herb Hall, Zhang Wanqing said gently. Moreover, he has a good relationship with the Chen family and the Sun family. The 3 families are already in a business alliance, and he and the head of the Sun family, Sun Lingyun, are in-laws. The Sun family owns one of the top clubs in Jinling, the Qingyun Society, but in the end, they are just working for Nie Zhonghai. Half of the real estate projects in Jinling are invested by Nie Zhonghai Real Estate, and the Sun family's Dynasty Real Estate is in charge of construction and construction. The Jinling government had once auctioned this piece of land according to the auction system, But countless rich people in capital had their eyes on it, and it had been auctioned at a sky-high price of 100,000 yuan per square meter. However, Nie Zhonghai was unwilling to bid at a high price, so he suppressed all the rich people, and now no one dared to bid at all. The Jinling government was also unwilling to sell it to Nie Zhonghai at a low price. For a time, this piece of land was suspended, and it was in a deadlock. After saying all this, Zhang Wanqing said, I know that you have the support of many rich people and don't lack money, but the Jiang family has just settled down, so we shouldn't attack so quickly. Nie Zhonghai isn't easy to deal with, and his two sons aren't easy to deal with either. Nie Mingyuan's scheming and resourceful, while Nie Feng is the vice president of the Clear Sky Association. He's vicious and merciless, and he's willing to do anything to destroy his opponents. Mom, if we want to revive the Medicine King group in the shortest time possible, we have to get this piece of land. How could Jiang Tian care about a small character like Nie Zhonghai? He snorted coldly and said, If 2 billion yuan is not enough, I will transfer funds from Lingnan. Just buy it. Nie Zhonghai is a big shot in the eyes of ordinary people, but in my eyes he is just an ant. Jiang Tian's simple words made Zhang Wanqing's blood boil. She smiled and said, All right, little Tian, I'll listen to you. Now that you have the central government's support, are you still afraid of a small Nie Zhonghai? If he dares to do anything, he will be courting death. However, Mom is right. Nie Mingyuan is sinister and cunning. It seems that I still have to find time to remind Sister Ziwei, lest she falls into eternal damnation. Jiang Tian let out a long sigh. In the next few days, Jiang Tian's days were very peaceful. He had already obtained the survey data of Mount Fulong, and was thinking about the plan to set up the array. Sometimes, he would meet Huang Zhihui, and the two would talk through the night. Jiang Tian would tell him about his design concept of the cauldron, and let him use modern materials to make the reaction cauldron. At this time, the Jinling Pharmaceutical University was surging with undercurrents because Jiang Tian's first public lecture was about to begin. With Luo Wen fanning the flames, it could be said that the entire Jinling Pharmaceutical University was now praising Jiang Tian, the fake professor. Many students who chose this course complained and regretted it after they found out about Jiang Tian's background. The ones who had the most intense reaction were the professors and scholars. They were all secretly holding back their anger, and wanted to embarrass Jiang Tian. Jiabi, I didn't choose this course. Why do you have to make me listen? In the shade on the side of the lecture hall, Huang Linger, who was wearing a short red trench coat, said with a gloomy face. Huang Linger was only 19 years old this year, but she already looked mature and quite charming. She was tall and slender, and her tight sweater wrapped around her exquisite curves. Her hair was tied up in a cute bun, making her neck look unusually slender and white. She didn't wear any makeup, but her pretty face looked even more beautiful. Her eyebrows were lively and her temperament was pure as if she didn't belong to this world. In particular, there was a hint of melancholy between her eyebrows. She was like Sister Lin in the Grandview Garden, delicate and timid. It was unforgettable and pitiful. I heard that this professor is very young and very famous, so I'm here to take you to listen. Ding Jiabi was already 26 years old, and had been working for 3 years. Her clothes were relatively mature, and her makeup was exquisite. It could be said that she was enchanting. Along the way, the two women could be said to be the most beautiful scenery on campus, attracting the attention of many boys. Many boys turned their heads to look at them and bumped into trees. You're still lying to me. It's clearly his class. Huang Linger's heart throbbed and she felt uneasy. The more hatred one had, the deeper one's love would be. Huang Linger didn't know why Jiang Tian suddenly appeared, and even found her father. Could it be that he still wanted to keep her as his mistress? Perhaps her motives for being together with Jiang Tian back then weren't pure. But that was also her first relationship in this life. That Christmas Eve, she thought it was so beautiful, but when she recalled it later, it was so cruel. Soon, they arrived at the lecture hall. The eyes of many boys in the front row immediately lit up, and they gave up their seats. This kind of girl was always relatively easy to pamper and treat in life. After Huang Linger sat down, she glanced behind her and said in surprise, "Why are there so many people? Even Lin Fengmian and Professor Li Linxian, These academic backbones are here. The lecture hall, which could seat 500 people, was already full of students, including graduate students and doctoral students. In fact, there were even some famous old professors and school leaders sitting in the back row. Haven't you always been thinking about him? This time, I'll let you see what kind of trash he is. Ding Jiabi snorted in her heart, but she smiled sweetly and said, his standards are probably very high, so everyone wants to come and learn from him. Sigh, he's finished. It's good enough that he came to invest in the laboratory. Why did he have to be a guest professor? The students and teachers here are very difficult to deal with. A trace of worry flashed through Huang Linger's heart. Chapter 220. She knew that Jiang Tian's studies were poor, and that he had to rely on her to pass his exams. If he did not teach well, wouldn't he embarrass himself? The next moment, she secretly despised herself. He was such a detestable person, yet she was worried about him. She must be crazy. A moment later, Jiang Tian walked into the classroom and walked up to the podium. The first thing he sensed was spirit qi. With a sweep of his divine perception, he saw everything. His deep gaze landed on Huang Linger's wrist. There used to be layers of scars there, but now it was wrapped in a silk handkerchief, and the protective jade talisman was wrapped in the handkerchief. Jiang Tian felt gratified in his heart. He had never thought of rekindling old feelings, but at least this way, she would not be hurt. But at this moment, there was a commotion below the podium. This is our guest professor? He looks younger than the photo. Yeah, he's too young. Tisk tsk, what can such a young person say? I'm regretting enrolling in this class. Many students whispered to each other and discussed animatedly. For a moment, the scene was in a mess and could not be suppressed. Back then, I was in the same batch as him. I know how terrible his results were. He failed every subject. Ding Jiabi whispered to a few of her classmates. She was in the student office, and many students knew her. Seeing this, they were even more disdainful. Someone even slammed the table and shouted, "What kind of guest professor is this? He's a monster." Ding Jiabi, what are you doing? Huang Linger seemed dissatisfied with Ding Jiabi's words and pulled her aside. Dean Luo, do something about it. Lin Monong said to Luo Wen, unable to stand it any longer. This class is over. Let's have a lesson summary meeting. Luo Wen pretended not to hear and turned to the staff. Everyone has to attend the meeting. I'll criticize the teachers who are too bad. He was extremely dissatisfied with Jiang Tian, but he could not afford to offend him, so he thought of this tactic. Class is starting. It was just 3 simple words, and his voice was not loud. However, Jiang Tian secretly used the dragon roar demonic sound technique. Instantly, a powerful pressure engulfed the entire area. Everyone's minds trembled violently, and they couldn't help but shut their mouths. In an instant, all the students and teachers kept quiet out of fear. The entire lecture hall was so silent that even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. My name is Jiang Tian. You can call me Teacher Jiang or Professor Jiang. My class is called Life Science and Futurology. Now I will start to talk about what life science is. Jiang Tian wrote down his name in a flamboyant manner, which immediately shocked a group of people. Back when he was inscribing talismans, he had already developed a good hand of calligraphy. When these few words came out, it was very shocking. The class quieted down and proceeded quietly. Some of the students took notes, while others frowned and listened. Jiang Tian's thinking span was too wide, and sometimes they couldn't keep up with Jiang Tian's train of thought. Halfway through the class, suddenly, someone stood up and sneered. Professor Jiang, this is what you call life science? It's a bunch of nonsense. Everyone turned around and saw an elegant and handsome young man standing up. Immediately, they let out a cry of surprise. Li Linxian, an associate professor of Chinese medicine. Someone exclaimed, "Wow, so handsome. What a gentleman. Appa with long legs and nice hands." Some of the infatuated girls were intoxicated. Yeah, that's the demeanor of a scholar. Compared to him, Professor Jiang is too tacky. He's like a migrant worker. Someone echoed. He's the youngest associate professor in our school. He has a double doctorate in biology and Chinese medicine from Wuxia Medical University. The citation rate of his 3 theses is ranked among the top in the country. In terms of academic foundation, he can even beat Dean Luo. There were even some straight-A students who adjusted their glasses and said with a face full of admiration, "It seems that Professor Lin is not convinced. He's going to scold this fake Professor Jiang. I'm looking forward to it." Many of the students present were gloating. The headquarters of Jinling Pharmaceutical University was completely different from Rinda College. In terms of overall professional strength, they were ranked in the top 3 in Wuxia. Of course, their admission scores were also very high. Everyone who came here was a straight-A student. Naturally, they looked down on someone like Jiang Tian who was fishing for fame. It's over, it's over. Jiang Tian is going to be exposed. I prepared a lesson plan for him. Why didn't he read it according to what I said? Lin Monong looked nervous and gloomy. Luo Wen looked at Li Linxian with admiration. Then he pretended to look down and make a phone call. He was happy to see this happen. Speak. Facing the crowd, Jiang Tian's expression did not change. He was a man of few words. You were talking about wall walking, silicon-based life, and that the human body is made up of vitality. It's all nonsense. Li Linxian looked at Jiang Tian with disdain and sneered. You're not talking about life science. You're talking about witchcraft, superstition, and science fiction. You don't know anything about life science. Yes, Professor Li, you're right. When everyone heard this, they felt that it made sense. Some curled their lips and said disdainfully, "Yeah, it sounded quite profound. Now that I think about it, it's all nonsense." Others slammed the table and shouted, "What's wrong with the school's leaders? They got such a fraud to be our guest professor. If he leads us astray into learning and research, who's going to take responsibility?" There was even a straight-A student who shook his head and said, "Professor Jiang is talking about pseudoscience. It's all pseudoscience. He's exactly the same as those academic frauds who make perpetual motion machines." Some teachers snorted. What the hell is he talking about in this class? It's a complete waste of the students' time. Lin Monong put her hand to her forehead to hide her embarrassed expression. Jiang Tian's lecture was so unorthodox that even she, as his teaching assistant, felt embarrassed. Jiang Tian was not flustered at all. He smiled faintly and said, "In 1910, astronomers predicted that Earth would collide with a comet. As a result, the world was in a panic, thinking that the end of the world was coming. This prediction came true. The huge comet swept past Earth, but Earth was safe and sound. This is because..." In the front row, Professor Huang Zhihui said, "The comet's tail is made of extremely thin material. Its density is as low as 10 to 22 grams per cubic centimeter. It's even more empty than the vacuum that can be created on Earth." Jiang Tian nodded and said with bright eyes, "But before Earth passed through the comet's tail, who knew this?" People often look at the world with frozen eyes and see some new concepts as inconceivable. A few hundred years ago, people stubbornly refused to believe that the sun was the center of the Earth because they personally watched the sun rise and set around the Earth. People also refused to admit that the Earth was round because they clearly knew that people couldn't stand upside down on the ceiling. Naturally, people couldn't live under the Earth either. In this way, they came to a seemingly correct conclusion from a concept that was once correct and hastily rejected the new concept. Now that we're laughing at their stubbornness, will our future generations laugh at us? Jiang Tian looked around the room and said earnestly, "Let's go." Students, even if it's obvious that people can't walk through walls, it can't be taken as the final conclusion. Don't try to quibble. Li Linxian smiled disdainfully and said, "I also want to admit that your theory that the human body is a distorted space and can walk through walls is correct, but what do you use to eliminate the distortion of space? Reciting a spell and sinking your will into your dantian? Do you know how many electron volts of energy are needed to shatter an atomic nucleus? Do you know that scientists have exhausted all their means and still haven't been able to release quark from the confinement of the hadron? Let's not talk about the deeper levels." In the face of the questioning, Jiang Tian said calmly, "The tree of practice is evergreen. Theory is always gray. If there's a possible fact that can't be explained by existing theories, then the best way is to forget about the theory and not waste time on it. You have to do your best to verify the facts because such contradictions often herald a revolution in theory. The tree of practice is evergreen? Ha ha ha. Show me now and put it into practice. Show me the art of walking through walls. Li Linxian laughed out loud. Then his face sank. A sharp glint flashed in his eyes as he said, "You're full of shit and spouting nonsense. You're fishing for fame. At your level, you can only deceive those foolish village women. I didn't expect you to dare to speak so confidently and shamelessly in an institution of higher learning. Do you take these students for fools? Do you take us teachers and professors who are studying for a master's degree as idiots? Dare I ask what degree you have and what papers have you published?" "Bachelor's degree, but I haven't published any papers." When Jiang Tian said this, there was an uproar. "This kind of trash doesn't deserve to be our teacher. Get out." Suddenly, Ding Jiabi slammed the table and shouted. She was beautiful. Be it among the students or the young faculty, she had many people who adored and supported her. With her taking the lead, many people immediately responded. There was a wave of mockery and it was extremely noisy. Seeing Jiang Tian look over, Huang Linger lowered her head and tugged at her sleeve, pleading, "Please stop talking." Lin Manong sighed and shook her head. Although she was somewhat close to Jiang Tian, and did not want to embarrass Jiang Tian. However, her rationality told her that what Li Linxian said was right. This is the biggest joke since the establishment of our Jinling Pharmaceutical University. A lecturer stood up, and couldn't be bothered to continue watching. "How can a liar like you be our guest professor? This is simply a disgrace to our pharmaceutical university, a disgrace to our school, and a disgrace to all the faculty and students." Li Linxian sneered. "Yes, complain to the Ministry of Education. We must chase him away. What the hell is this? How can he have the face to be our professor here? It's ridiculous. There must be a conspiracy. There's a power and money transaction." Many students were encouraged by Li Linxuan's words. All of them were filled with righteous indignation. They wanted nothing more than to skin Jiang Tian alive to protect the inviolable dignity of Jinling Pharmaceutical University. "You pulled me here just to let me see this?" Huang Linger's eyes were slightly red, and her beautiful eyes were about to cry. She looked at Ding Jiabi with a complicated expression and asked, "Ling, are you awake now?" Ding Jiabi's red lips curled, and her eyebrows were raised so high that they were about to fly out of her face. "He's a liar with a monkey's hat. He has always been a glib talker. He has been lying since university until now. Don't bother with him in the future. He has been lying to me all this time." Huang Linger felt a wave of sadness from the bottom of her heart. She felt weak all over, and there were tears in her beautiful eyes. On the podium, Jiang Tian's face was calm. He swept his gaze across the faces of those familiar faces from his previous life. Chapter 221. Luowen was gloating, Lin Manong was exasperated, Ding Jiabi was gnashing her teeth, and Li Linxian was smug. Finally, his gaze landed on Huang Linger's face. Was she about to cry? Jiang Tian's heart ached when he saw this. In that instant, Jiang Tian seemed to see her aggrieved and despairing face from 10,000 years ago. It was as if he could see her resentful and helpless eyes from 10,000 years ago. And those sparkling tears. Perhaps he should do something to tell her that he wasn't a liar? Jiang Tian slowly lowered his head. He had already made up his mind. In the eyes of everyone, it seemed that Jiang Tian was already speechless and was too ashamed to face everyone. Instantly, the mocking laughter, cursing, slamming of tables, and discussions became even more intense. It was like a huge wave of sound that wanted to overturn the lecture hall, and fiercely slapped Jiang Tian, this liar, to the ground. Alright, Li Linxian, do you want to see the wall-walking technique? I hope you won't be scared to death. Jiang Tian suddenly smiled faintly. The next moment, Jiang Tian suddenly walked toward the wall on the side of the lecture hall. Jiang Tian took a step forward and said calmly, "Let me tell you something. I don't understand your theory, nor am I interested in understanding it. But I can let you see the wall walking technique with your own eyes. Jiang Tian walked with a majestic gait, picking up his pace. Soon he would crash into the wall. What is he trying to do? Is he trying to kill himself by smashing his head against the wall to atone for his crimes? A student asked, puzzled. He's just trying to be mysterious. Ignore him. Lin Fengmian couldn't stand it anymore. He stood up with a frown and walked toward the back door. Lin Manong also lowered his head, unable to suppress the disappointment in his heart. He didn't want to watch any longer. He's still so fond of lying. How disappointing. A drop of sparkling tear slowly slid down Huang Linger's flawless, jade-like cheek. With the last few steps, Jiang Tian was almost sprinting. The next moment, there was a loud bang. With a thud, Jiang Tian crashed into the wall. Aya, where is he? Where did he go? However, at that moment, everyone let out cries of alarm. Everyone did not see Jiang Tian's head bleeding as they had expected. Instead, they saw Jiang Tian disappear in an instant. Professor Lin Fengmian turned around and saw the magical scene. Jiang Tian's figure disappeared into the wall in an instant. It was as if two translucent objects had overlapped and then completely disappeared. Then, under everyone's horrified gazes, Jiang Tian's head poked out from the wall. At first, it was a blurry image, but it gradually became clearer. Then it was his shoulders, arms, and upper body. Everyone was stunned. The entire world was still. Not a single sound could be heard. Professor Lin, do you believe me now? Then, under everyone's incredulous gazes, Jiang Tian stepped forward and said calmly, "How is this possible?" Li Linxian rubbed his eyes hard, his face full of disbelief. The deeper one's understanding of science, the more incredulous it was. The wall-passing technique that only villagers and foolish women would believe in had actually appeared right in front of him. How was this still a human? This was more like a god. In an instant, his face was filled with horror as if he had seen a ghost. His whole body trembled. Now you should be willing to listen carefully to my theory, right? Well then, let's start again and tell you what's going on. Jiang Tian returned to the podium and scanned the audience with a faint smile. Yeah, what's going on? Is this an immortal technique? Everyone returned to their seats with reverence and fear on their faces. Even the old professors who wanted to leave obediently returned to their seats. They stared intently at the tall figure on the podium. I just said that humans' understanding of the material world is only limited to a few levels. There are total galaxies, clusters of galaxies, stars, molecules, atoms, nucleons, layers, or quarks. Although the concept of material separability is applicable at these levels, it seems to be too early to make a final conclusion. Jiang Tian said calmly. From the known level of material structure, material entities only occupy a small part of the space of this level of structure, such as celestial bodies in galaxies, electrons in atoms, and atomic nuclei. And since neutrinos can pass through any material freely, it shows that there are also large gaps in the foreseeable levels. Jiang Tian's voice was deafening and echoed in the large classroom. So exciting! I didn't expect Jiang Tian to be so knowledgeable. Ding Jiabi's eyes sparkled. At this time, she worshipped Jiang Tian to the extreme. She had completely forgotten that a few minutes ago, Jiang Tian was still the hateful liar she had called hateful. Huang Linger rolled her eyes at her. Then, she looked at Jiang Tian on the podium with a puzzled expression. Who the hell was he? In each level of material structure, the physical part only occupies a part of the space of that level. The physical part of the next level only occupies a fraction of the physical part of the upper level. Although the ratio is not the same, it should be far less than 1. This is an inference based on the known level of structure, and using the same induction method. Therefore, as the structure of material is dissected layer by layer, the total volume of material entities in the universe is a linear sequence of numbers. If the first few steps are in line with a certain pattern, and there is not enough evidence to refute it, then inference according to the existing pattern is the most reliable after all. If the induction method can be used to conclude that matter is infinitely separable, then the same induction method can be used to conclude that the sum of the physical parts of matter is bound to approach zero. Therefore, matter is just a form of existence in space. It is a distorted space constrained by multiple levels of force fields. At the end of the microscopic world, there is nothing. This is my conclusion about the nature of matter. Jiang Tian's logic was meticulous and penetrating. Many scholars shook their heads and sighed with emotion as they listened. So exciting, so interesting. It's like a book from heaven. This theory is exactly the same as Kenneth's idea in cosmic astrology. So that's how it is. From time to time, students rushed into the classroom after hearing the news. Even quite a number of school leaders came. However, no matter how high their status was, or how great their academic titles were, they all sat there and listened carefully like primary school students. There were not enough seats, so they sat in the open space at the back of the classroom and in the aisles. In Strange Stories from a Chinese Studio, there are records of Laoshan Taoists who entered by knocking on the wall. In ancient Indian yoga, there are also legends of wall passing, telekinesis, and so on. It's very strange. These legends are very common. They can even be said to be global. Is there such a possibility? Jiang Tian quoted from many sources and talked endlessly. His words were like lotus flowers blooming on the ground and falling from the sky. At this moment, he spoke freely and freely. He was no longer the liar that people talked about. Instead, he was like a great scholar who knew everything about the past and the present. In the end, many academic bigshots from Jinling University and several other universities came to listen. They were completely stunned by Jiang Tian, as if they had been enlightened. Assuming that matter is just a distorted space constrained by a force field, the two green smoke and two beams of light can pass through each other because there is enough uniform space between the distorted microstructures. The reason why the human body and the wall can't pass through each other is not because there is no space inside them, but because of the distortion inside them. Just like a curved copper rod can't pass through a curved copper pipe, even if the latter's diameter is much larger. However, as long as we eliminate the distortion of both sides, or even one side, the copper rod and the copper pipe can pass through each other. In other words, as long as you have the power to eliminate the distorted space, you can theoretically pass through the wall. The problem is how to eliminate the spatial distortion. When Jiang Tian gave the final conclusion, Li Mu was stunned. The classroom was silent. No, I feel like I'm in love with Professor Jiang. Why is he so amazing? Our school's professors, compared to him, are like garbage. Countless girls were infatuated. Their eyes turned into stars. They couldn't wait to pounce on the podium and throw themselves into Jiang Tian's arms. This knowledge, it's like a god preaching. He knows too much. Cosmology, astrophysics, biology and even futurology. Lin Monong and many young scholars were also dumbfounded when they heard this. They were intoxicated and dazzled. It was as if the bass string in the depths of their hearts had been plucked. It was as if their minds were riding on this slowly trembling peak to the depths of the universe, listening to the mysterious sounds of nature. What a peerless genius! Lin Fengmian's eyes were filled with shock as tears streamed down his face. He sighed with a trembling voice. How is this life science? This already involves the truth of matter and the mysteries of the universe. He felt that there were sparks dancing in Jiang Tian's eyes, as if he was Prometheus, who stole the heavenly fire. As he moved forward, the heavenly fire jumped in his eyes. He was the preacher who brought the fire of civilization to mankind, the preacher of a god-level civilization. Sigh, if he stays in school for a year or two, our school will definitely have a Nobel Prize winner. The Jinling Pharmaceutical University is going to soar into the sky. Many old professors and scholars had tears in their eyes. They were so excited that they couldn't control themselves. I really underestimated him. He's too scary. Rowan was extremely uneasy. Many of his schemes against Jiang Tian disappeared in an instant, and were replaced by deep fear. In fact, Jiang Tian's lecture was only a scientific explanation of cultivation. When he traveled the universe in the past, he had seen all kinds of strange cultivation civilizations, even god-level civilizations. If he were to talk about all of them, these people's heads would definitely explode. Now he looked at the knowledge on Earth like a Nobel Prize winner looking at elementary school math problems. After the lecture ended, the students were still unwilling to leave the classroom. They begged Jiang Tian to continue. There's more next week, Jiang Tian said indifferently. If you want to understand my theories in depth, you can apply to join my laboratory. Go to Lin Manong and sign up. Fairsky Laboratory? What's that? Many students were puzzled. Students, this is a laboratory jointly established by the Medicine King Group and our school. They invested 100 million. Rowan stood up and said excitedly, I believe that under Professor Zhang's leadership, we will definitely achieve great things. He looked at Jiang Tian with reverence and said with a smile, Professor Jiang is the young master of the Medicine King Group. This research fund was also brought by him. Linger, so he's the young master of the Medicine King Group. He's so knowledgeable and a young rich second generation. Say, do you think you can continue your fate with him? Ding Jiabi's beautiful eyes were shining and her face was flushed. She pulled Huang Linger and asked excitedly. Chapter 222. This. Don't talk nonsense. Huang Linger lowered her eyes, and her eyes flickered. No one knew what she was thinking. We're willing to join. We're lucky to be able to follow Professor Jiang in his research, even if we don't get paid a single cent. Many students reacted fiercely. This included not only the teachers and students from the Pharmaceutical University, but also the teachers and students from Jinling University and Jinling University of Science and Technology, who had come to attend the lecture. There was no lack of famous scholars among them. The students, lecturers, and professors instantly boiled over and flocked to Lin Manong. Everyone, don't be anxious. Come one by one. Lin Manong registered his name and answered the questions. He was extremely busy. This was the effect Jiang Tian wanted. To build the laboratory, he not only needed pharmaceutical and chemistry majors, but also big shots in cutting-edge fields such as materials science and physics. During the lecture just now, he had interacted with everyone a lot, and had already figured out everyone's academic foundation. It could be said that after today, many of the top scholars in Jinling University City would be under Jiang Tian's control. However, the moment he walked out of the classroom door, Jiang Tian activated his divine consciousness and instantly erased the memory of his performance of passing through the wall from the minds of the hundreds of people present. It was good that he had achieved his goal. If word of his amazing power spread, wouldn't it scare people to death? The construction of the laboratory was not something that could be done overnight. Jiang Tian was not in a hurry and left it to Lin Manong and Huang Zhihui to be in charge. Other than occasionally going to the Pharmaceutical University to check on the preparations for the laboratory, Jiang Tian spent most of his time in the villa cultivating and researching the reactor. His days were lazy and comfortable. However, when he was free, Jiang Tian also missed Zhao Xueqing a little. It was inevitable that they would flirt and talk to each other through video calls every day. That morning, he ended his cultivation. Mama's right. I have to be careful of the Nia family. Also, after my return, it caused some butterfly effects. I should chase away the flies around Sister Ziwei. Jiang Tian exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and narrowed his eyes slightly. His eyes were as clear and deep as a lake in autumn. After receiving the 2 billion yuan investment from Jiangbei, the Medicine King Group had returned to the main business of Chinese medicine production. The prescriptions that Jiang Tian had given to Jiang Lin were immediately registered for patents. The group's 8 production bases and dozens of production lines were running at full capacity day and night. The Medicine King Group was now rejuvenated. Orders came in like snowflakes. It could be said that it was in full swing, shocking the entire industry. I really didn't expect little Tian's prescription to be so strong. The sales of the month before and after the Spring Festival broke through and surpassed the sales of last year. In the CEO's office of the Medicine King Group, a stunning beauty was sitting behind the desk, looking at this month's financial report. Yi Ziwei had a fair oval-shaped face without any makeup, but her skin was clear and translucent. Her eyebrows were dark, and her eyes were like limpid autumn waters. Her long hair was tied up high, accentuating her slender neck, which was as white as jade. She wore a black office lady's uniform, which outlined her perfect body. With her perky buttocks and ample breasts, She was truly enchanting and beautiful beyond words. A pair of rimless glasses rested on the bridge of her nose. Her eyes were bright and piercing, but at the same time, she exuded a sense of intellectual elegance. In fact, Jiang Tian's prescriptions were important to the Medicine King Group's success, but Yi Ziwei's management skills were also indispensable. Yi Ziwei had a stunning face and a seductive body. She could be said to be the most beautiful woman in Jinlin City. Her nickname was Ice Mountain Beauty, and she had countless suitors. However, she showed no mercy to any of her suitors. She rejected them without hesitation, and she had never been involved in any scandals with anyone. This also aroused the desire of many young masters from famous clans to challenge her, causing even more people to become restless. They hoped to conquer this proud phoenix and obtain both wealth and beauty. Speaking of which, Yu Chang was just one of the many suitors. At this time, the female secretary knocked on the door and came in. She said excitedly, "Boss Yi, someone has sent flowers." "Ah, have they brought them up? Distribute them to the female employees in the company," Yi Ziwei said indifferently without looking up. "Ziwei, what you are doing is not very good. You are making me very sad." A warm and pleasant baritone voice came in. Then, a handsome young man in a white shirt and black trousers walked in with a smile on his face. Behind him, 2 flower shop assistants carried in a basket of delicate and beautiful roses. The expensive blue roses could only serve as a foil. The red roses in the middle set off a big heart. There were at least 1,000 roses in such a big basket. It was worth at least 10,000 yuan. Seeing this, the female secretary's eyes widened. She praised in a sweet voice, "Young Master Nia is so romantic." "Mingyuan, it's you. Please take a seat." Yi Ziwei put down the financial report and smiled. She stood up and made a gesture of invitation. She was very conflicted about Nia Mingyuan. Nia Mingyuan was very capable and had a powerful background. He was the young master of Shanghai real estate. His family was very rich, and he was very gentlemanly and elegant. He was not comparable to the average rich second generation. In particular, Nia Mingyuan had helped her a lot in the business field over the years. His suggestions were often incisive and went straight to the point. Previously, when Jiang Qingfeng gave up on traditional Chinese medicine and switched to traditional Chinese medicine production, Nia Mingyuan had expressed his clear opposition. During this period of time, the Baichao group had relaxed their suppression of the Jiang family, and he was the mediator. It could be said that Nia Mingyuan was more than enough to match her in terms of background, ability, appearance, and other aspects. Moreover, if she could think further, it would be very beneficial to the development of the Medicine King Group if she could have a marriage with the Nia family. After all, the Nia family's assets had reached 10 billion yuan. Nia Zhonghai had connections with both the government and the underworld. He could be said to be able to do whatever he wanted in Jinling. However, whenever she thought of falling in love with and marrying him, Yi Ziwei felt uncomfortable. Jiang Tian's handsome face and his sunny and domineering smile always appeared in front of her eyes. "No, it's already noon. Let's go to Sister Sue's Banana Club for lunch." Nia Mingyuan took the mineral water and thanked the female secretary with a smile. Then he raised his hand to look at his Patek Philippe watch. His clear eyes narrowed into beautiful crescents as he said softly, "You have been busy recently. You've been so busy recently that you haven't had a proper meal. You have to pay attention to your body. Work can't be done all at once." He was able to display his amazing charm with every move he made. The female secretary's heart was completely melted, and it was so sweet that it melted. "Oh, Boss Yi is really lucky. Nia Mingyuan cares so much about her. If I can have a meal with young Master Nia, it will be worth it even if I die." "Mingyuan, is it just the 2 of us?" Yi Ziwei frowned slightly and asked hesitantly. Nia Mingyuan smiled helplessly, but he looked very chic. He looked at the door and shouted, "Forget it, Mu Yinqing, come out. I lost. Boss Yi is willing to go out only if you are with her." "Haha, I told you can't do it." Mu Yinqing came in with a Prada bag. She was a woman about 27 or 28 years old. She was tall, wearing a vertical striped shirt, a white suit, and a black professional skirt, which set off her delicate curves. Her small face was sparkling like jade, and her makeup was exquisite. She could be called a femme fatale. Seeing that her best friend Mu Yinqing also came, Yi Ziwei could only agree. She simply processed the document and was ready to go out. Mu Yinqing sat on the sofa and waited a little impatiently. Her clear and beautiful eyes glanced at the man and woman in the office. She only felt that the two people were a match made in heaven. Ziwei is really stupid. Her useless idiot brother is married. What is she waiting for? Jiang Tian is capricious and his private life is chaotic. How can he be compared with Nie Mingyuan? At this time, a figure came in slowly and said with a smile, Sister Qing, I made lunch for you. Jiang Tian, why are you here? Yi Ziwei suddenly stood up and didn't believe it. Bring you lunch. Jiang Tian put an insulated lunch box on the desk and opened it. There were 4 layers of sweet and sour pork ribs, braised chicken, steamed base, 3 dishes and a bowl of white rice. It's rare. I didn't expect your cooking skills to be so good. I didn't see you show it during the Spring Festival. Yi Ziwei's eyes narrowed into a beautiful crescent shape. Her eyes were a little moist for a moment. Then, like a little greedy cat, she picked up the chopsticks and ate. She forgot Nie Mingyuan and Mu Yinqing. It seemed that at the moment, there was only Jiang Tian in her eyes and only delicious food. Her mouth was full of oil and she vaguely praised. It's delicious. Sure enough, it's like the legend. Nie Mingyuan's pupils suddenly shrank. It seemed that he had seen an unprecedented enemy of life and death. A cold light flashed. He had never seen Yi Ziwei like this. She removed the cold and strong disguise of a strong woman. She was completely a delicate and moving little girl. Her beautiful eyes were full of emotion, just like a wife who saw her husband who had returned home from a long journey. At this moment, there seemed to be an invisible barrier that tightly wrapped the two people together and separated him and Mu Yinqing. The two people only had each other in their eyes. There was no outsider. If you like to eat, I'll make it for you every day. Jiang Tian smiled and looked at her with pampering eyes. In his previous life, he was taken care of by Yi Ziwei for so many years. In this life, he should also take care of her. Oh, it's so corny. Mu Yinqing's heart was sour and she raised her eyebrows. Mu Yinqing and Jiang Tian have known each other for a long time. More than 10 years ago, her father was still the secretary of the county party committee. She was decent, sensible, good at studying, and was also a school flower-level figure in Xixia. When Jiang Tian and Ben Jinshui were still in junior high school, Mu Yinqing, who was already in high school, was the flower of the county government and the county party committee. She was also the dream lover of many large courtyard children, including Jiang Tian. She was a member of the mighty army who admired him with snot flowing from their noses. It was not surprising. Later, her father was transferred to Jinling, and she also followed. Her career developed well, and she appeared more charming. But she didn't expect that from beginning to end. Jiang Tian didn't even look at her. Yi Ziwei almost finished half a bowl of rice. At this moment, when she heard the words, she suddenly remembered Nie Mingyuan. She stood up and apologized. I'm really sorry, I won't go to your party. Jiang Tian, you caused so much trouble. And you still dare to come back? Aren't you afraid of being broken by the old man? Mu Yinqing raised her jade white chin and squinted at Jiang Tian. She half-jokingly and half-seriously said, As soon as you came back, you destroyed our party. You really don't have eyes. Ziwei still thinks about you every day, but after a few years, I don't think you've made any progress. You didn't even say hello to me when you came in. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.